What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 76th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined once again by my good pal and host of the Xbox Expansion Pass, Luke Lohr. Luke, how are you doing on this fine Saturday, my dude?
I could not be better to be here with you, Miles Dompier, episode 76 of Xbox Chaturdays, talking Sea of Thieves. Man, I'm so grateful for you having me on. Thank you. What's up, man?
Dude, we have a lot to talk about. It's been a week. There have been delays upon delays. We're going to be diving into all of that. We're going to be talking about Microsoft clapping back on PlayStation's comments regarding the Activision Blizzard acquisition. We're going to be talking about some leaked new Xbox hardware, our predictions for Gamescom 2022, the state of Sea of Thieves, and so much more. I'm excited because it's been slow, relatively speaking, on the news front. But there are a lot of things that have developed this week and are on the horizon that we get to dive into. So there's some fun stuff to talk about this week. But before we get into all of that, for the amazing people joining us live on youtube.com/Windows Central Gaming or listening on audio services, let them know who you are and where they can find you.
Well, if you have not been introduced to me before, my name is Luke Lohr. I host a weekly podcast called the Xbox Expansion Pass, in which I discuss all things relevant to the Xbox ecosystem, how news impacts it on a weekly basis. But I also, and this is my most pride and joy, I take the time to interview developers, voice actors, and producers from all over the gaming industry, things big and small, from the smallest indie games like Death's Door to kind of the biggest names. I've had people like Ed Freeze on my show to talk about stuff. Some of the biggest games that you've heard about, voice actors from games like Halo. I love talking to people from around the industry that are willing to donate their time to my humble podcast. And so the coolest thing is, man, you may listen to an interview that is for a game you're never intending to play, but you'll still learn something and enjoy hearing about how those creators make games. They make our industry better. And so I hope that anybody listening that hasn't listened to it before will give it a shot and see if they're about it.
Absolutely. If you guys haven't checked out Xbox Expansion Pass, as Luke touched on, a lot of great figures, a lot of great industry folks talking about their insights on making video games, what the process is. So if you are curious to get some more details on what that's like from someone who has worked on it and actually has some context for some of these development things a lot of people speak on Twitter about without any sort of context, a lot of refreshing conversations on there. So appreciate the work you do, appreciate you continuing to reach out and grow your kind of reputation in that space.
Thank you, man.
So, some quick housekeeping before we get into today's show topics. If you are watching, I'm excited. Thanks so much for tuning in live. If you are digging the show, hit the like button, share it out. If you are listening on audio services and you enjoy the show, take a second to leave us a review as well. And if you did not see, your boy got to talk about Phantom Dust this week. I'm not going to rant about it on the show. I've done that countless times. But if you are curious on the history of Phantom Dust, you want some more context for the canceled reboot, you want to know about the recent resurgence the community has seen, I wrote a lengthy, I think it came out to be like 2,200 words over on Windows Central about Phantom Dust. So it gives you a lot of information. If you've ever been curious about the game, if you have no idea what Phantom Dust is, that's also a great place to start as well. So if you are curious to get more information on this game that I constantly rant about, and a game that many people are probably sick of hearing me rant about, I just wrote it out there. So it's out there. You can read it if you want, and then I'll shut up about it for at least a little bit. At least, I'll give you 3 days or so that I won't say Phantom Dust. I can promise that.
If and when that franchise returns, if they don't have you on the front lines of coverage for that, it will be one of the greatest travesties in gaming.
I will consider that a personal attack. If I am not the one on stage revealing Phantom Dust, I will take that as a personal attack on my character.
That sounds like you should. There is no doubt in my mind that Phil and Co need to call you up and oh, hello, Miles. This is Matt Booty. We'd like you to be there.
I mean, come on. That's not too much to ask, right?
No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
A quick super chat from Mr. Joanna Dark, who's been a channel member for 22 months, almost 2 years. Hot damn, we've been doing this thing for almost 2 years. Shout out to the GOAT, Miles Dompier, and the dude, Luke Lohr. You two gentlemen are awesome. Saying hi from the UK this week. Mr. Joanna Dark is abroad. Mr. Joanna Dark is now Mr. Worldwide out there in the UK.
I hope you're traveling safe, Joanna Dark. You are awesome.
Love that dude. Love that dude. He's constantly in my DMs harassing me about Code Veronica, whatever. We've all had that debate.
Yeah. He's so supportive of content creators, and I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Exactly. It really, really does. So appreciate it. Appreciate him. Appreciate Yodani modding like a boss. We got Fun Speculation. We got a lot of amazing people hanging out with us in the chat. So let's get into it. 2022 is quickly becoming the year of delays. It started with high-profile delays, Redfall and Starfield, that kicked off conversations that, oh my God, Microsoft is incompetent. Microsoft cannot put out games. What is going on the Microsoft camp? And that was the main focus, because those were the two big ones. Since then, it's just been this cascading, just week after week, there's a new game delayed. And this week, we got two more very high-profile delays. First up, Marvel's Midnight Suns is delayed into 2023. I think they said before March, but no date. And then Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah, end of fiscal year. And then Hogwarts Legacy, February 10th, 2023, instead of holiday 2022. So a lot of the biggest games that people were looking forward to this fall they're getting pushed. They're getting moved. And we're getting to this point where now it's become apparent to a lot of people that this isn't a publisher-specific thing. This is just kind of a tough year to get games out the door. So, Luke, with Marvel's Midnight Suns and Hogwarts Legacy, how are you feeling about those delays? Were you really amped up to pick up either of those titles?
I was excited for Marvel's Midnight Suns on account of the fact that it's a comic book game, and I really enjoy superheroes. That's kind of my bread and butter. I anything from Avengers to all the way back to Wolverine and remember X-Men Legends and all the 16-bit games.
Yes.
I love comic book games. I love comic book heroes. So I was curious about it from that perspective. Lord knows they've had some of the most impressive trailers, but they weren't gameplay specific. They didn't really show a lot of gameplay, and so if I'm being honest, and a little bit of guilt when I say it, I kind of saw this one coming. It made sense that Midnight Suns would get delayed from the lack of gameplay that we truly seen on the title. As far as Hogwarts goes, not being a Harry Potter fan, I was still excited for this game. I tend to prefer the more sci-fi elements of the bigger franchises, Star Wars and such, but Hogwarts looked great. I think WB made a conscious choice to say, let's get Gotham Knights out, and that's a game that will live in a very different way. It's live service. It's got the Batman name attached to it. They can do different things to bring people back if it doesn't launch well, which most games in that realm don't launch super great, and they tend to be really far better, a year or two down the line. Whereas Hogwarts, they need the win from the get-go. That's a game that needs the win from the get-go. It needs to be polished and ready to flourish. And I think we're seeing the full effect of COVID. The games that could have come out and be pushed through did, and the stuff that now needs the true in time, the QA, people downloading builds and truly fixing stuff, that just is the result of what we're seeing. And I hate it for anybody that was really looking forward to it. I hate it for anyone that's planning to release a game in February or March, but this is the nature, and we can't very well critique games or I should say studios for crunching their developers and then at the same time complain that games aren't coming out,
Yeah, that's something we've talked about a lot there's been this hard push from a lot of folks outside and inside of the industry to move away from crunch culture. And I've talked about this kind of at length before, but the reality is developing a video game isn't really the most high stakes scenario. I always see people talk about other jobs or scenarios where they have to crunch, but realistically in the entertainment field, there's no need for it. Obviously there's deadlines, obviously there's financial restrictions. But if you're someone outside of that, if you're not directly impacted financially, I really don't think anyone should be shouting that people need and should be working 60, 70 hours a week to get this game done. Regardless of what you've endured in your personal life, we've all had terrible jobs. I've worked 70 plus hours for years at a time. but I am
Yeah.
still not out here saying, well, I did it, so you have to. You have
Right.
to make me this video game. So again, don't want to get into that too much, but
Sure.
I'm kind of in the same camp. Marvel's Midnight Suns, it looked cool. I'm not a
Mhm.
big XCOM guy though. I'm not a big isometrical tactic player.
Mhm.
So for me, that was, I was curious to see what it looked like because it's an interesting concept. And Firaxis is a very beloved studio. They've done a lot of amazing work. Hogwarts Legacy as well. I'm also not a huge Harry Potter fan, but to see them kind of finally create that big, sprawling open world wizard experience, you get to roam around Hogwarts, you get to go to the dungeons surrounding it, you get to go to potions class, all of those
Mhm.
things that Harry Potter fans grew up reading about and watching the movies. They're bringing that to life in a game. So that idea is really cool. And I'm glad that they are making sure, like you said, that when this comes out, this is solid. Because another complication with Hogwarts Legacy is J.K. Rowling.
Sure.
J.K. Rowling's behavior, comments in recent years, it's turned a lot of there's a lot of bad will towards the Harry Potter brand now, which sucks for that team. Like
Yep.
it's this moral conflict where people don't want to support J.K. Rowling, and she's going to get money from this, regardless of whether people or not want to.
Mhm.
Um, but also, there's a bunch of people who are working on a game and working hard to make sure this game is great. And so there's this moral conflict of supporting them versus giving J.K. Rowling money, which is honestly, regardless of where you stand on that issue, it is, I think, going to impact sales in some capacity. So if this
Sure.
game comes out with that controversy in mind and is kind of a mess, it's not a winning formula. So I'm glad they are going to ensure that this game is at least better than it would have been.
I agree, and I think oftentimes we tend to pin unfair stigmas on franchises. If I were to sit down with George Lucas and ask him every political opinion or every thought that he had on religion or any other controversial topic, I probably wouldn't agree with everything, but that
Yeah.
should not remove my love of Star Wars. My love of Star Wars is mine, as is anyone's love
Hmm.
of Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. It's what that franchise does for you personally. And I think we often need to keep that in mind because there are human beings making the game that have their own thoughts and opinions. If I sat down with every developer, I would agree and not agree with plenty of things. That's the nature of humanity. And so
Yes.
I really think that Hogwarts is the game that might make me a Harry Potter fan in the way that Sea of Thieves made me a Pirates of the Caribbean fan. I
Yeah,
always
there we go.
I I liked Pirates of the Caribbean, but I was never into it. Man, I've watched those movies probably 3, 4 times since I started really getting into Sea of Thieves, and now I really enjoy it. I'm watching Black Sails because of Sea of Thieves. Like games can be a doorway into other stuff, and I think Hogwarts, because of the quality that it looks to be displaying and the nature of which the story is going to be, you can kind of work your way through Hogwarts as your own character. You're not beholden to the timeline specifically. They've got that. It's a prequel of sorts. I think that could be a window into that world for a lot of people, and as a result, it needs to be a wonderful introduction to that world. So take the time to make the game that it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm firmly of the camp that at a certain point, once art is in the world, it is no longer the artist. Like as you said, we all have our memories, and as much as it is a bummer when you have somebody that you look up to or inspired you creatively or personally or whatever it might be, when they end up being someone you don't like or don't want them to
Mhm.
be, that can't really erase the memories that you have of a property, and that can't really erase the importance of certain properties. So
Right.
yeah, I agree. I see a lot of people being very vocal about the J.K. Rowling thing regarding this game. And I'm of the camp that, if you're excited about this, you can be excited about it. And if you are upset and you want to take a stand against J.K. Rowling, you have every right to do so as well.
Mhm.
And so that's
Yeah.
that's a conflict you need, and a conversation you need to have with yourself. But it is this tough conflict that I'm sure is affecting the development team as well. Regardless of where they stand, they see those sentiments from people who are like, I love Harry Potter, I really really do, but I can't support this individual.
And
And
surely some of them feel the same way.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. There a lot of people working on that game probably feel the same way. They're like, man, I wish you would just shut the up.
Hmm.
Just
And I
please
think.
fade into, you can put out Harry Potter, just fade into obscurity and let people enjoy it, please.
Hmm. And we really have to keep in mind that we're seeing a rubber band effect with a lot of communication on Twitter and social media spaces for developers. Bungie being the most recent example. A lot of things, their developers there are going through a lot. Um, we need not announce with hate our decisions every single time. We can make statements. That's what if we have Twitter, and if you're tweeting out your position on any topic, that's absolutely fine. No, everybody has a choice whether they follow you or not, and you have a choice whether to
Yeah.
say things. But be cautious about who you're tagging, why you're tagging people, and if you're going in to just go in, or you're saying, "Hey, this is my thought, and I'm done with it." That's a different thing than going after. I don't need to tag Gotham Knights in every single frustration I have for a game I'm very excited for. You know
Do
what I
it,
mean?
Luke. Get online, yell at them, just diminish them to nothing, and then squeeze them in the palm of your hand.
That's how I'm going to get the results that I want. That's how I'm going
Exactly.
to get the best game, is if I
Bully
really
someone
demean
into
them.
submission. That's how you get their respect. That's how you get
It
their admiration.
works every time. Works every time. Yep. As I wear my Snyder Cut Batman shirt,
Oh no. Okay. All right. You touched on this briefly, but one of the
Okay.
segments I wanted to have regarding the delay conversation is as we
Sure.
look to next year, as we look to 2023. Obviously, 2022, at this point, not a ton of humongous, big AAA games on the horizon. Year
Mm-hmm.
started off strong with things like Horizon and Elden Ring. We've had some other things scattered throughout the year. People were looking for Redfall and Starfield to kind of fill some of those gaps. Now we have God of War Ragnarok as well, which fingers crossed that keeps the date and that comes out in November to be another noteworthy one. Pokemon as well. You know, people on this in this camp don't like Pokemon, but it's going to be a big deal. But as these are delayed and everyone is talking about Q1 of 2023, we're going to get into a situation where we have, much like this past year, a bunch of humongous games launching back to back to back to back to back. And no matter how great these games are, no matter how they review, not all of them can sell well,
Mm-hmm.
especially ones that are competing genres, because there's only so much time and so much money that people have. So, are you concerned about Q1, or do you think people are going to start shifting those dates beyond that first quarter?
I think is going to be continued shifting. There's a lot of high profile games that are kind of nestling into Q1, but if I'm a wise if I'm a wise steward of these franchises, I need to be cautious of some of the bigger stuff, right? Like I need to avoid Starfield. I need to avoid Avatar. I need to avoid the stuff that's going to garner quick buys in. I don't worry myself as the gamer, except when I think about myself from a content creation space or having to buy X amount of games in a tight spot. The game, I think, will likely be fine whenever
Mm-hmm.
for whatever one we're talking about. But maybe I move an indie title, right? Maybe I avoid dropping my indie in the wake of some of the bigger things. My hope is that they don't all cram into February, March. January is a good window of games, as is April. And I say this, armchair analyst, of course. But spreading things out, we no longer really need to honor the holiday only category. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
games sell very well outside of just holidays. And I hope they do kind of diversify a bit, because one of the things I hated was we had this really crowded year at the beginning of this year. And it was like Dying Light 2, Gran Turismo, Horizon, Elden Ring, and I feel like there were one or two others in there. I feel like Gran Turismo 7 really got drowned out for the PlayStation community, and that was supposed to be a big one. And then Horizon suffered the same fate that it did with Breath of the Wild years ago
Coming
in the
out
wake of
right
Elden Ring.
before, oh wow, this is one of the biggest games ever. Sorry.
Right, and it's a real disservice to the people creating that, because they created high quality games in both situations. And so there is value in spacing things out if you're a shareholder, if you're a first party, third party company putting out the game. As the gamer, for me, it's a matter of I have two currencies that I have to deal in: time and money.
Mm-hmm.
Time time as a Game Pass subscriber is usually the problem, because a lot of the stuff I want to play comes out to Game Pass. Um, but those two things need to be made aware for the gamer, and that's why I say I don't want them all in February and March.
No, that is my message to publishers. Publishers, I don't care how big you are, I don't care how big you think your game is. Do not release everything in February of March of next year. I know you have quarterly results and you have shareholders that you're beholden to in certain ways. You need to have the hard conversations now and say, look at this schedule. Do you want this game to just come out and have to compete with all of the biggest games of the year? Or do we slap this thing in June when there's nothing else around and just let it thrive? Because, like you said, the holiday window is still important in some ways, but it's not the end all be all like it once was. And I think we really need publishers to be more aware of how they are spacing games if they want all of these games to do well. Because, like you said, time and money are the biggest factors for so many people, and we don't have unlimited either. So it's, again, no matter how great your game is, there's going to be a game that somebody is more excited about or thinks is better, and maybe they would have bought your game, and now because they bought something else and they missed that initial rush, they might not ever come back to your game. I can say from personal experience that's happened to me so many times where there's a game that I wholeheartedly intend to buy. Something else comes out that I'm more excited about, I buy that, and then I just never get around to playing that thing.
Right.
Ever.
And this is an industry that now trades in engagement. It's not a matter of the sales, it's a matter of the money being spent in that game, in that ecosystem. Twitch matters. Concurrent player counts matter because articles get written about it. And that is another method of and metric that they have to keep in mind. When Halo Infinite drops Season 3, Forge, Campaign Co-op, they need to do it in a time window where they're cognizant of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. They need to time it in a way that they can garner a ton of goodwill articles being written by media professionals, and they need to time it in a place where they're doing Twitch drops concurrently so that content creators are spotlighting the game once again. That's how you recover Halo Infinite. And you know what you don't do? You don't do it within 2 weeks of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, because why set yourself up to compete, right? Nothing's going to get worse for you, but allow yourself the window, the month away from Call of Duty, and then you've got all this goodwill content dropping simultaneously, and then you're good. But if you force media professionals to make a choice about what article to write, if you force streamers what to stream and make a choice there, then you're likely doing a disservice to your own product. And I think that's something that, as an armchair analyst, an outside observer, I feel like companies forget. Mind you, I'm sure they have analysts and people that can critique stuff on their own end, but I still feel like they get it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of these teams are confident in their game. They're proud of the game. They're spending a lot of marketing dollars to ensure that this game does well. And the reality is there's only so much they can do when there is that genuine competition, because as much as you can look at industry trends, as much as you can kind of roughly track how you expect this to perform, the personal preference of the individual is something that you cannot dictate. And the more that there's that conflict between titles and a game somebody might want over another, the less you can predict how your game is going to perform. And so that's why I think, much like we see in Hollywood when we look at movie releases, there are the big blockbusters that come out in summer. And then there's a lot of other bigger, noteworthy titles that do a good job and space themselves out. No movie wants to release the same weekend as Marvel's Avengers. That doesn't happen. You don't release two big movies like that back to back. Right. You have, like, Nope was the example I used recently, because Jordan Peele, all three of his movies were #1 at the box office. And I will say, I've enjoyed all three. I've seen all three. But the main reason for that is they were the standout. It's not to say they are the biggest movies that have ever released. They were just the biggest movie at that time. And I just want to see the game industry be more aware of how they can leverage that.
And when Jordan Peele drops that movie in that window with no competition, the people that cover that industry, they've got to write about something. They're going to choose his movie to write about.
Yeah. Let's go.
So, that's the thing.
So yes, delays at this point, I don't think anyone can deny that they're just an inevitability. They are just a part of the industry. There's conversations to be had as to, okay, well, maybe people need to be better about how they release or how they announce release dates, how they go about messaging that. And I will say, we have seen a huge trend on the indie side. A lot of indie projects are not giving you dates. They're saying, this is the window we're targeting. We'll give you a date 6 weeks. We're getting release dates like a month out for some of these games. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing to know, like, oh, okay, I know this game's coming, and then bam, I can play this in 4 weeks. It gets more complicated on the AAA side because of the marketing machine surrounding it. When you're doing cross promotion, when you're doing merchandise, when you're collaborating with other brands in the space who have to deliver products as well. There is so much that goes into that, and that's why we see this kind of unhealthy, I guess is a safe word to use, unhealthy, push to have that release date, because you can build momentum, you can start that train, you can build that energy, and sure, it sucks when there's a delay, but in the AAA space, it's kind of, I guess, a necessary evil for the people who don't like that approach. And
You know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, and I think that's just the conflict that we see in the AAA space. Again, there's nothing more exciting when a game is released or revealed, just boom. And then they say, guess what? 6 weeks later, you can play it. Like, there's a reason people love shadow drops too. Like, you can play this right now. Just, oh man, I didn't know this was a thing, and I can play it right now. So I would love a world where Xbox has a showcase and it's like, Phantom Dust reboot. You can play this in 6 weeks. Like, that would be so huge. But when you're putting millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into a thing, you need to have that lead up. You need to have that momentum to ensure that, the SEO, the algorithm, everything is like feeding into this brand and this name. So when it hits, people are aware of it. So again, I don't love it, but it's tough to think of an alternative in the true AAA space.
I've been a bit confused by Microsoft's strategy with some of their Xbox AAA titles. And I would cite recently, like Forza Horizon 5, one of the best games ever made in the racing genre and outside of it, super highly reviewed, but it was drowned out when Halo dropped, particularly when they dropped the multiplayer 2 weeks early for an anniversary. People stopped talking about it. And then they didn't market the Hot Wheels nearly at all that I could tell, at least not in the spaces that I travel. Everything was As Dusk Falls related for Xbox. In a year where things are so content light for Microsoft, I was curious why they chose that route to spotlight an indie title with niche appeal versus, I think, a wider appeal AAA experience that is so approachable for so many players. And then think about, Miles, all the Xbox games coming out that we know about. We know about so much that they are creating. So much, from Fable and Hellblade 2 to Perfect Dark, and what's going on with a couple of the kind of smaller projects. We know so much about Microsoft's portfolio that is upcoming, and the 2 games they gave us dates for have been delayed. The games they gave us dates for with Halo was delayed. And so it's curious to see their choice in how to market and what to market. And sometimes they are 100% on point, and I love it. Other times I really am confused how they could miss the mark after nailing it here and there. And they must have a metric that I don't see that shows something. And I would love to be a fly on the wall, or just to hear the reasoning behind, in recent example, why spotlight As Dusk Falls instead of Forza Horizon? Why not move your Forza Horizon date? You're not losing anything by moving it 2 weeks, to my knowledge, in a year that's so content light, to let you do both. And I would love to be fly on the wall just to learn why and how they go about doing and making the choices for some of those marketing.
I felt the same way when the audience was vocal about the really light year from Xbox, and how there was going to be this huge gap between first party and partnership projects. And then Forza Hot Wheels and As Dusk Falls, their 2 biggest things for a while, released in the same week. And like you said, again, they must have some metrics that we don't, but as an outside observer, I say, why not space those out a couple weeks? Why would there be your 2 biggest things back to back in the same week when you could have 2 different marketing beats, put a little more energy into Hot Wheels? And maybe it is that Forza Horizon 5 is a big deal. People are going to play it. Hot Wheels is a big deal. You don't have to spend that much money. You say, hey, Hot Wheels is coming to Forza. People are like, all right, I'm playing it. And maybe that's the data they saw. Maybe they just saw there was so much search traffic and momentum in it already that they didn't have to do anything. Whereas As Dusk Falls, as you said, a little more niche. Obviously, it's not an established IP. It's a new project from a new team. Maybe the reason they put so much energy in is to help lift that up, where they didn't need to lift Forza, because Forza's going to Forza. Forza crushes. Forza Horizon 5, huge. Huge launch.
Huge.
Huge launch. Still a ton of players playing that game. And so maybe, yeah, again, maybe boring analytic stuff. They said, we can put a few trailers on YouTube. Bam, this thing's going to crush. It's going to ace. We can put it at any time. It's going to do well. Whatever. Because they're coming out so close, let's make sure As Dusk Falls gets elevated. Again,
Sure.
that's just me speculating. I don't have that data to say.
I did not enjoy As Dusk Falls. I didn't even finish it, and despite my not enjoying it, I was really impressed by everything I saw. Very high quality writing, really cool tech involved in, like, you can just log in on your phone and play on your
Mm-hmm.
phone. I used my phone as a controller for the first chapter. The idea that you can do like group play, all that stuff is really cool. I didn't like it because it was a little too down to earth for my interests, I guess you would say. I wasn't in the right headspace for that kind of a heavy game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is
Um,
definitely a heavier game, and you need to be
right.
in the mood for something serious and weighted.
Exactly, and so it didn't jive with me at the time, but I would love to sit down and just talk to them about their mindset going in and creating. I love interviewing people. That's a team I would love to chat with because they created something that's really special and really cool. And while I think plenty of people jive with it, others don't. There's so much to be learned and taken from the lessons that they put into action, the lessons they learned and then put to paper. What I'm trying to say. I hope.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that they took in and created something that I think is really cool. And in my mind, they evolved a genre that hasn't evolved much since Telltale's work. And I think peaked probably around Telltale Borderlands. Uh, they really kind of took it to the next level, a next version of that. And so, cheers to that team. I hope they enjoyed success as well. And I always feel bad when I don't fall in line with reviews of something. I hate when that happens.
Hey,
Uh,
it's
you know what I mean?
what's interesting about that project, and a lot of projects in the space lately, where I've seen people say, "I don't like this," or "This wasn't for me," or "I didn't think
Mhm.
this idea was good or well executed." I'm just excited that they are, despite the possibility of that being the reality, because the art
Mhm.
style is very different from anything that we've seen in a game. A lot of the presentation is a lot different than anything we've seen in a game. There was no formula that guaranteed that this would be a hit, and it is perfectly okay to not like. We all don't have to like everything. I see that especially on the Game Pass camp. There's a lot of people who look at Game Pass games come to the service and say, "That's not for me. I don't like this." And the reality is not everything is for you. You're not supposed to like everything. You don't have to like everything. They just want you to like one thing. That's their goal. If they can
Right.
put one game in there per month that you say, "Yeah, I'm excited about this." They have succeeded. And if they can spread that net and get as many people to feel that same way, where there's one game per month in there that they like, that's totally
Mhm.
fine. And again, I it's totally fine that we have differences in opinions on these
Mhm.
things. And I want to see more people experiment and not have it be like, well, I didn't like this because it's not X game. It's not doing what X game is doing. Just go ahead and get weird. Go ahead and try it. Game Pass is a vessel for trying weird things that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Agree. I absolutely agree.
So let's
Fully.
get weird with it, y'all. And if you don't like it, that's okay. It's okay.
Let's get weird.
All right. Quick shout out to the amazing people joining us live. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. We have a lot of juicy stuff to dive into. I'm gonna get to some super chats because y'all been crushing it on that end. First up, we got Nick W, who's been a member for 3 months. Says, "What was the game that got you guys into gaming?" Luke, what was the game that got you into gaming?
Oof. The very first game I ever played was, I think it was Empire Strikes Back on the Atari. My mom gave me a controller trying to keep me calm when I was very young. Like, she just pulled it out of the closet kind of thing. But I also want to answer with Metal Gear Solid because I was always into games from the moment I played Empire Strikes Back. But Metal Gear Solid, the first one, when I realized I could manipulate where soldiers go and I saw the video, the
Yeah,
credits rolling and whatnot, that's when I realized that I could love video games to I'll use the word mature, but a more mature level. It wasn't just Mario running and jumping. I wasn't just being a Jedi or a fighter pilot. I could also be something more. Metal Gear Solid allowed me to transition my love for games into a more mature state of mind. And for sure that's ebb and flowed, but I've never left my love for gaming since I first played Empire Strikes Back on the Atari. But it has changed over time. The games I love, the games I choose to play, and and whatnot because I now have more money and time versus being a kid, right? When
Exactly.
you're a
Yes.
kid, you play the game that you get because that's all you get, right?
You get
Free Game Pass.
maybe 3 games on a good year, and you play the hell out of those
Mm-hmm.
games.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
For me, I'll keep mine brief because I've shared this story on this show before and other shows as well. But the very first game that I ever played was The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. And again, and I've talked about this before, but in hindsight, it is absolutely wild that one of the first games, or the first game I ever played, was one of the best games that has ever been made. And it's a game that I revisit often. As I've gotten more accustomed, as I've gotten more experience with video games, what makes them great, what I like about them, what I don't like about them. It's wild to go back and play that and have it hold up in such an amazing, compelling way. And that game to me, playing that and understanding what video games could be, that instantaneously made me fall in love with gaming. And since that moment, I've been hooked.
It's weird. I think I've got about 10 years on you, Miles. I think I'm a little older than you are. But it's wild to me that it's quite possible that many young players, their first Batman game was Arkham or
Yeah,
their
Arkham
first,
Asylum, one of
yeah,
those
which to
masterpiece.
me,
Hmm.
I remember as a very strong comic book fan and a lover of comic book games and movies. I remember the first time I played Arkham Asylum, and I was like, we are on another level of superhero games. This is now what it can be. And now that could have been someone's first Batman game, first
Uh-huh.
introduction to Batman. People are playing Spider-Man PS4. They don't know what it was like in the Beanox days. They don't
They
know
didn't
what it
play
was like.
Maximum Carnage on Super
That's
Nintendo.
oh gosh, that was so good. I played Spider-Man on Game Boy once, and that was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not a great game, but like it's wild to think that this is their introduction to X, Y, or Z for such a young medium. Gaming is very young compared to movies, compared to uh, books and such. Like it's certainly books, but that's the nature of getting older is getting to look back and be like, well, back in my day, we played Maximum
Back.
Carnage. Got this Spider-Man PS4. We didn't know what platinums were. And it's now people today, like this past week, we're seeing Steam Deck portable Spider-Man 4 PS4. Portable version.
Yeah.
Like it's so cool. Gaming's the best, and getting to grow up with it is I think a real privilege that we sometimes forget to say thank you for.
And in the relatively small amount of time that we've been alive in this weird experiment that we all live in,
Hmm.
video game has come so ridiculously far.
Yeah.
So ridiculously far. And it's like you said, Spider-Man PS4, something that 10 years ago wasn't even possible, could not even be done. Now it's on a Steam Deck. And not only is it on Steam Deck, but it looks and runs beautifully on Steam Deck. I've been playing on Steam Deck. That game kicks ass on Steam Deck. It's so good. I was so shocked by how few concessions are in place for this amazing experience. And that's just, again, it's rekindled my push for Xbox to give me a handheld, and it's
Hmm.
rekindled my push for that Switch Pro. Let me play everything handheld. Give me the option to play everything handheld, not on the cloud. I want native.
Okay.
The cloud's cool, but
Well, I know we'll talk about hardware in a bit, and I'm curious what you're going to bring up because I'm not sure what it is this week. I must have missed something, but not cloud. You want it native. Why not just partner with the Steam Deck and say, hey, let's get Game Pass games on here.
yep, been my big push. If Xbox is not going to get in the space and do it,
Hmm.
lean hard. PlayStation as well. PlayStation has been most of their stuff that's coming to PC is Steam Deck verified, so they both can just leverage that, and maybe that's what they'll do. They'll just say, "Hey, Valve's doing well. Valve's killing it. We'll just make sure these are Steam Deck verified. Boom." But if they can give us native Xbox Game Pass support, if we can link our Steam account to our Xbox account, get native Xbox Game Pass support on the Steam Deck, maybe I'll shut up about the Xbox handheld.
All right, there you go. Okay, I do think they have work to do because getting into the hardware space right now and in the midst of a chip shortage that's going to be ongoing for a bit. That's
Chip
it's probably
shortage,
tough to do.
recession. Microsoft and a lot of other companies have already kind of scaled back on new hires and hiring processes. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the likelihood of maybe investing in new hardware right now, if it's not already
Mm-hmm.
far underway, is less likely than.
Well, think about how powerful your phone is now compared to 15 years ago. I think you're going to be playing super high quality games sooner than later. And latency, cloud versus native, latency's already better than it was 3 years ago.
Dramatically better. There's the xCloud alone has come such a long way since your first launch. I remember trying to play Sea of Thieves in my car, and it was like 720p, 30 FPS.
Yeah.
If I remember right, and the latency was tangible. It was sticky.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time trying to adjust myself. And then I
Yeah.
played it the other day, last week, booted up Sea of Thieves as well. Now it's 1080, now it's 60. That latency, if you're on, especially if you're on a dual band Wi-Fi connection at home, it is so close. Oh, so close to being unnoticeable.
I think we're coming close, and I've seen, this is probably a year old now, but I remember seeing articles about developers are now changing the way they design the opening hour or so of their game to better accommodate the people that might be jumping in via cloud. Shorter tutorials or less dialogue.
Engagement, baby. I want to be in now.
Right, exactly. It's a cool medium to watch, man. Every little thing we've talked about today, it's really fun to be an observer of it.
Exactly. A couple more super chats here. We got Hargi Chani who says, even Game On Daily's Go Live is delayed. That's right. They have canceled their first show since they went live. So kudos to them for sticking with it. I'm just a solo guy, so I know they can trade back and forth between Gaz and Asa. When I got stuff to do, I just got to dip. It's just a one-man operation over here. So I haven't been as consistent, but also want to enjoy my weekends every once in a while. So sue me, all right? Hardy Johnny with another super chat says, great to see Microsoft pushing back on Sony instead of just playing nice. Do we expect this will change the perception of deals keeping games from Game Pass? Hold that thought. We are going to dive into all of that, and we're going to have an in-depth conversation about a lot of the comments that have come out of the Brazil hearing regarding this Activision Blizzard acquisition. Mr. Joanna Dark says, thoughts on 2023 now being oversaturated with too many games, and we could see games move to 2024 or summer to make sure they do not get overlooked. Yeah, we touched on this a little bit, but yeah, the hope is that they space it out. That Q1 is not terrible for all of us, and terrible for the teams who spent 5 years on something to have it just completely overshadowed by something. As we've seen with Titanfall, it doesn't matter how, Titanfall 2 specifically, it doesn't matter how good your game is. If there's something else that people would rather play at that time, it gets lost.
They would rather play.
Yeah, it's a bummer. All right, I think I have one more, and then we can two more. Huffy Bear, what are your favorite horror games? Oh, Luke, I forget, are you a big horror fan or no?
No, I'm not a huge horror fan, but there are some standouts because I don't frequent the genre. Again, it goes back to my mindset, but I think Resident Evil 7 is by far one of the best horror titles ever created. That first-person perspective really does a lot. To that same effect, I really enjoyed PT. I know it's a weird button to touch on, but I felt PT was a wonderful experience when it first came out. And then, without a doubt, in the very beginning, when it first kind of came out, Resident Evil 4 was a special game.
Yes.
And I love Resident Evil 4. I don't think it holds up as well, and I'm really excited for the remake that's coming, given the quality of Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake. But Resident Evil 4, aiming from third-person perspective, but not being able to run, it was this weird, cool balance. And then hearing that chainsaw rev up and that Leatherface-esque character moving at you, I loved those horror experiences, and I enjoyed turning the lights off and getting excited for it. And also, shout out to Bloober Team. They've gotten a weird bad rap in the last year or two, weirdly, and they've made some great horror titles, and I really respect their efforts.
Yeah, horror obviously for me, big deal. A lot of horror titles are near and dear to my heart. You talk about Resident Evil 4. I remember playing that for the first time in the Los Gigantes when you have that fight for the first time and you get in there and you see the shacks. And at that point, we are so accustomed to cheesing games because the mechanics were so simple. You could get away with exploiting a lot of mechanics. So I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to hide in this shack and cheese this thing. I'm just going to shoot through the window. It's not going to be able to hit me. I'm just going to kill this thing from the safety of this shack. I get in the shack, start shooting at it. It comes over, crushes the building. That blew my mind. No game had ever done that before. No game had baited you. They said, we know what previous games were. We know what you could get away with in previous games, so we're going to let you think there is safety here. And we are going to absolutely destroy that. So that moment to me, and many more in Resident Evil 4, have solidified it as one of the best games ever. On the horror side, some underrated ones that I don't think get enough nods in the conversations. Fatal Frame 2. Fatal Frame 2 Director's Cut in particular, if you've never played that game, that is hands down one of the scariest, best-paced horror games that has ever been made. It's so good. So good, and not enough people talk about it. Obviously, one that people do talk about that I love, Silent Hill 2. That defined the survival horror genre, I think, or psychological horror genre, I think, in a lot of ways. But I could go on and on. There's a lot of really important, but check out Fatal Frame 2 in particular if you haven't, because that one does not get enough love. Yodani says, "The cloud for As Dusk Falls beckons a 1 versus 100 return." I'm sorry, that would absolutely destroy in this market.
How could they not?
A super casual, easy access, easy accessible mega trivia party game? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
You can boot it up on your phone, browser, computer. Come on. Come on. All right, Luke, the hardware. Talk about that hardware that leaked. This leaked Xbox hardware.
This is news to me, so I've not heard this. I'm excited.
It's probably not news to you, I'll say.
Oh,
you know, I'm using inflammatory wording here.
All right.
But the hardware that leaked is not a new piece of hardware that leaked. This is the second time that we have seen images of a white Xbox Elite Series 2 controller.
Yes. Yeah, that's real.
So, yeah, we've seen it out in the wild 2 different times now. The speculation, I think it was going to come out last year, but it's been a little while, and now we're seeing it again. Repercolating some speculation that this could be coming for the holiday release. Mm-hmm. Luke, are you a controller fiend? Are you going to be picking up a white variant of the Elite Series 2?
I probably will not, given that I have 2 Elite 2 controllers. I have the Halo one, which was
that one's good.
Halo. So pretty. I just bought some really good replacement sticks off Amazon. Made it feel like a new controller again. And so I rotate between that and my standard Elite 2. It's such a high price tag to justify. There's a lot of things you can do with an Elite 2 and an Elite controller, but in truth, Miles, the only thing I really get out of it is the back paddles. I do some I use the trigger stop gaps, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm playing an FPS, like I make it shorter.
Quick response time.
That's right. The older I get, the more advantage I need. But in truth, I don't see myself playing, $250 in a window where I have the God of War Collector's Edition and the Gotham Knights Collector's Edition. Yeah,
that wallet's taking a hit, dude. That wallet's taking a hit. Arkham City beatdown.
Yeah, and we're just purchasing a car, and so I can't really go to my wife and be like, "Hey, can I spend even more?"
And $200 on a white controller. I already have 2 of them, but it's white.
Yeah, I've got a black and a green, but not white, honey. Yeah, I don't see that practically. The Elites are too expensive, for sure, particularly in this market. And that said, they're so beautiful, Miles. I'm of the camp that the Elite Series 2 is the best controller that's ever been made. Agree.
When it works. I have both the Elite 1 and 2. I have sent back for repairs a combination of 7 times.
Wow. And I've heard of this happening to people.
And some of them, at a certain point, after sending them back a combination of 7 times, I have just started doing my own repairs. I have started buying soldering kits and replacement bumpers. So I have done my own personal repairs to my controllers. And so for a controller that is that price tag, I have to say that in my experience, I've been very frustrated by the build quality and the consistent issues from button sticking, A and B, the right bumper braking, to stick drift. I mean, some of these things there's a lot of little nuance, hard to, have 100% success ratio, but I know a lot of people with the Elite in particular who have had similar experiences. And so when I see another Elite Series 2, I say, no, I'm good. Yeah. But if they give us an Elite Series 3 and they come out day one and say this thing has a 3-year warranty because we know we have disappointed a lot of people in the past, let's go. I'll be all over it. I love my Elite Series 2. Love it so much. The back paddles. When I try to play my PlayStation, when I try to play my Switch. Anytime I play a game, especially first-person shooters, I'm so disappointed when I don't have those back paddles. So
Oh yeah,
bummed. So,
agree.
so bummed. That's why the Steam Deck has been huge, and they incorporated the back paddles as well. So those paddles have transformed my expectations of what I want from every single controller. And if PlayStation puts out an Elite equivalent, I know there's the Scuff and some other versions, but if PlayStation puts out a first-party Elite option, I'm there. I'm buying it in a heartbeat because I want those paddles. And so I'm looking towards what's next. A new Elite Series 2 for me does not do much because my experience with the Elite Series 2 has been frustrating.
I can certainly understand that. I don't blame you one bit. And that the higher the complexity, the more likely things can go wrong, right?
Exactly. Like cars.
Uh,
Like we look at the modern landscape for cars. As they get more advanced and can do more things, there is more room for them to break.
mm-hmm. The the back paddles that should have been standard in this generations of controllers, no matter the manufacturer. I think a lot of people heaped praise upon Microsoft for including the screenshot button generation late, but they did it. And then people love the DualSense. Great, it's a good controller. I don't think it moved the industry the way some people spoke that it might. But the absence of back paddles is a really big frustration point because it makes the controller so much more accessible for different types of games,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that to me is a bummer. I love that in the Xbox menus you can customize your button layouts. That's great for accessibility, but it's really nice to be able to just squeeze the controller in a way that's more comfortable for your hands and helps for more long-term gaming. And you're right, the build quality on the two, while I've been very fortunate, knock on wood, to not have many issues of any kind, um, I wouldn't want to buy an Elite 2 in this economy, in this market, knowing the stuff that's going on. An Elite 3, sell me on it. Sell me
Exactly.
on it.
You've
Talk to
had
me about what you're doing different.
fool me once, shame on me. Fool me
Fool me once,
twice,
shame
shame
on
on
you.
you. All right.
No, that's not how
You
that.
do whatever.
I got you.
It. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically, if your third one has widespread problems as well, I think I'm done. I think that giving it 3 shots, 3 attempts. Okay, you know what? I've done my due diligence. I've tried, and I agree. I think having paddles, I think that would be a nice way to move the industry forward, and not just re-signing them in some ways. I think the core ideas since the Xbox 360 for a controller haven't shifted really. Everybody's been doing slight variations of that same layout, and so we haven't really been able to improve upon the experience, enhance the experience. And I know adding more buttons gets more complicated, maybe add some accessibility barriers there, but I think having the option for a lot of games would get us closer to evolving the console experience. Because when I look at the Steam Deck gamepad, I remember looking at that thing and being like, ugh, what on earth are they doing? Why are there track pads on either side? Why are the buttons just skewed out to the max? The paddles on the back are huge. But now that I've been using it, having all of those features, having the paddles on the back, having the joysticks, having the track pads, I want a new Elite controller that has a trackpad. Like a little mini trackpad, because the precision aiming, you get the best of both worlds. You get the mobility and the tactile sensation of a controller. But when I'm playing Sea of Thieves on Steam Deck, I use that right trackpad to aim, and I have so much more control. So it's just this beautiful just fusion of PC mouse and keyboard aiming. But my main problem with PC mouse and keyboard is I don't like the tactile sensation of the keyboard and mouse. I don't get the responsiveness. I don't connect with it in the same way I connect with a controller. But that being said, I understand that aiming on a joystick for the most part is not close to as consistent as a mouse. So having that duality, I want somebody to really experiment with that idea and figure out a way to get that mouse sensitivity on a controller without major compromises. And if we can do that, that's it.
So I have a weird thought. I don't know if you can finagle this with your spouse or whatnot, but have them take a video of you using that trackpad while playing. Because I'd be really curious to watch how that works. Because in my mind, I can't envision. It seems so silly, so simple as well.
Yeah, because you have the back paddles, things like jump, things like attack, things like switching inventory. You don't have to ever take your. For me, I don't ever have to take my thumb off the right stick. And so that's kind of the beauty of it. So I can do all of my jumping, my weapon swapping with the paddles, and I can just use left stick to move. I can use the triggers to attack, and then I can just use that trackpad to aim. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's something that I'd never thought I would do. I thought for sure the only reason they were incorporating a trackpad on the Steam Deck was compatibility. They wanted to make sure that everything worked. And because of the PC landscape, you really need a mouse in some capacity for some games. So they said, throw trackpads on there, we'll call it a day. But they did it. They did it in a way that I really, really enjoy. And I want to see some sort of elite variant just kind of give us that best of both worlds.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see this in motion because for better or worse, I keep thinking about the Vita's touchpads and touchscreens, and I don't think that's the same.
It's not. It's not the same.
But that's all I can seem to envision, not having seen it. So I'm curious to
I'll use my Microsoft Surface Duo 2, and I'll prop it up so I can film myself while playing Sea of Thieves.
There you go. Cool.
All right, now is the bulk. Now is the bulk of the show where we are going to dive into Xbox responding to PlayStation's comments on the Activision Blizzard acquisition from the Brazil hearing. So one thing that we have learned in all of this is that the Brazil hearings for this level of commerce, they're very transparent. We get a lot of information that we don't get from a lot of other countries. And so we have gotten a lot of juicy comments, as you've seen. If you have been on the old twitter.com, there's been a lot of quotes pulled from this, from PlayStation, from Xbox, and there's a lot of interesting things to dive into here. So we're going to be breaking down a few different categories. I'm going to be reading quotes that regard to these categories, and we are going to be discussing them. So before I get into these, before I touch on these, it is worth noting that these are translated from Portuguese, so there may be some slight discrepancies. This is essentially a fan community translation of Portuguese. So I can't speak Portuguese, so I can't speak to the 100% authenticity of these quotes, but based on reactions from people who do speak Portuguese, this seems pretty accurate. All right, here we go. Let's dive into it. On Xbox Game Pass, on PlayStation's comments regarding them being unable or taking years to create a subscription service that rivals Xbox Game Pass, here is what Microsoft had to say. Sony's not resigned to having to compete with Microsoft's subscription service. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Sony doesn't want an attractive subscription services to threaten its dominance in the market for digital distribution of console games. In other words, Sony rails against the introduction of new monetization models capable of challenging its business model. The fear that an innovative business model that gives consumers access to high-quality content and lower upfront costs threatens its position as the leader in the gaming industry, with Microsoft moving away from a device-centric business strategy in the sense that gamers must buy PC consoles to have access to the best quality games, towards a more consumer-centric or gamer-centric model. Microsoft's ability to continue expanding Game Pass has been obstructed by Sony's desire to inhibit such growth. Sony pays for blocking rights to prevent developers from adding content to Game Pass and other competing subscription services. All right, Luke, so there's a lot to unpack with all of that. Microsoft is making some bold claims. One of the biggest and most noteworthy claims that they have made in this legal document, a legally binding document, I might add, is that PlayStation has blocked rights for developers to put their games into Xbox Game Pass. We had seen a rumored report regarding Capcom and titles like Resident Evil Village that basically said because of marketing deals, they could not put a title in Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. There was some confusion and concern regarding the authenticity of those documents. I'll say that ahead of time. So that's why some of this stuff was kind of hard to sift through, because there were people coming out and saying that this is not true. Some of this is basically altered. So again, I can't confirm that report on the Capcom side is real, but Microsoft coming out and stating it in their legal discussions here is very. What's your takeaway regarding Microsoft basically addressing that this PlayStation's comments are only stemming from a place of concern regarding losing their pinnacle position in the gaming industry?
Well, if I sold anybody on the idea of coming to the XEP and checking out my stuff, I might lose them now. Of course they're concerned about it. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you be? They're a business. Their job as a business is to bring people and customers in. Uh, Throughout these entire proceedings, it makes perfect sense that a company would want to do whatever they can to satiate their audience while denying their opposition certain opportunities. Um, I'm sure you'll bring it up, but the idea of playing fair does not seem to exist in business, and I don't know why people expect it to. The hypocrisy of expecting that one company does one thing, and because another company doesn't do it, that they should, is very silly. I was really, I was not surprised by some of the rhetoric surrounding this, but I still am kind of baffled that people are surprised that a company would want to deny a competitor stuff to be on. And keep in mind, if they're paying for blocking rights, the people that are getting are subject to that are choosing to acknowledge and sign off on that deal as well. That means, let's say in the case of Resident Evil, if that is true, this is a good example because it's a high profile third party game. If that is true, Miles, then Capcom had to say, you know what, that's worth it to us to not be on Game Pass and to take your money now with the marketing now. They chose to sign that deal. That's not Sony being the enemy or anyone being the enemy. That's two business partners saying, yep, this is more profitable for us than being in Game Pass for X amount of time. That means the pressure should be on Game Pass to make themselves more attractive. We've seen countless marketing deals, countless exclusivity deals in every direction, Miles. I mean, Inside and Limbo launched on Xbox, didn't come to competitors. Death's Door, same thing. They paid for at one point in the old Microsoft, they paid for Tomb Raider to be exclusive for a bit. These things happen, and they're not just Sony, they're not just Xbox, it's the third parties involved as well. And so I wasn't like losing my mind, angry at anybody for it's not Sony's job to play fair, while Microsoft plays fair. They have two different strategies, and they're both trying to sell to consumers and sell to third-party partners that they are worth it. And I love the two different strategies. I think it's good for us that they are doing that. I want Microsoft to incentivize people as a typically Microsoft-based gamer. It's their job to bring in third-party people and sell people on the idea of coming to them. And it's not Sony's job to allow that or placate that. Does that make sense?
There's a lot of interesting little nuggets that
I'm scared to look at the comments after I
that
said
kind
all
of
that.
feed into that, because I'll be frank, there have been some wild conspiracy theories, and that's the problem with a lot of this discourse is when we start touching on the possibilities or we start filling in the blanks for what the reality is of the business, it gets skewed and it gets warped as to what the actual reality is. I'll share a little insight into my experience, because before I was in the games industry, I was in a high level based sales and marketing in the spirits industry. So from the sales side, I got to see a lot of things that shook me to my core, quite frankly, on how business operates on that level. I was part of a big conglomerate, if you will, the biggest spirits distribution company in the United States, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. I was on that side, and there were deals in place because we had dominating brands. We had brands like Jim Beam or whatever, and there were people swinging that weight and being like, "You need this. You have to have this, and if you want this, you can't do this." And I would see people above me, my superiors, go to these partners, and they would say that if you want this product, you want this limited release, then you cannot stock this, or my percentage at your business needs to be this. If you were going to carry, because Jack Daniels, that was our biggest competitor in the space, if you're going to carry Jack Daniels, we need to have a 60-40 split of real estate at this location. And there was stuff like that, and there was bribes in place. People were getting flown out to all these places. There was all of this wild stuff happening, and it was weird to me. It was uncomfortable to me. I understand the business world in some capacity, but seeing it firsthand, that made me shift away from that company. And then I moved to a smaller independent mom and pop, and I had to overcome the juggernauts I had to go to these accounts and I had to listen to people say, this spirit's good. I like this. It's cool,
Mhm.
but these guys are giving me $10,000 a month if I
Mhm.
keep this here. And I had
Right.
to basically say, well, I am not going to give you $10,000 a month, but here's why you should still do it. And here's
Mhm.
why you should still work with me. And again, while some of them liked me, liked we had a good business relationship, I can make other things happen. Some of them were just like, bro, 10,000 bucks is 10,000 bucks. So I'm not going to do it.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Right.
And so those are the things that I had to overcome. And so again, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the widespread reality of the games industry and that's the kind of thing that Sony is doing to leverage its position. But in the business world, in the especially the established long-running companies,
Mhm.
things like that do happen. And if you are the market leader, you worked your ass off. You worked your ass off for decades to be the market leader, and you never want to lose that position because it is
Sure.
it is so hard to get that position, and once you lose it, it's going to be so hard to get that back. So yeah,
And
when
you'll
I
pay to keep it.
exactly. So when I hear somebody like PlayStation say to Capcom, this is a hypothetical example again,
Mhm.
just for context here. If I hear that my Sony's like, hey, we're going to give you X amount of money to market this game, we are going to spend millions and millions of dollars to market Resident Evil Village.
Mhm.
We do not want you to put it in Game Pass because of that. We don't want to spend millions and millions of dollars to
Sure.
market this game and have it go to Game Pass. And like you said, this isn't Sony quote unquote forcing anything. This is
Mhm.
Capcom saying the millions of dollars that Sony is giving us in this case is better than the millions of dollars that Microsoft is going to.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so again, I don't love hearing that. Like I touched on that when
Mhm.
I was in the business world, I strived to not cheat, not take shortcuts, not
Right.
bribe, not do any. That is the reason that I left the company. And
Mhm.
so that it's a moral conflict for me. And I don't like hearing those things, but I know that they do happen in the business world.
Fully. And I had the several years where I worked at GameStop prior to my now career, and paying for floor space. There was a time where Microsoft was paying more for more floor space, more advertising stuff in different sections of the store to be the front of the store versus the back, et cetera, et cetera. That is par for the course in a business world. And you can bring up any number of that. I don't mean you specifically, but any number of arguments can be made what's good or bad for gaming. The discussion about $60 or $70 games, subscription service prices, this, that, or the other, they're all built upon making money and a relationship with the consumer. And if the consumer is unhappy, they won't spend the money. If the consumer is fine, satiated, or okay with it, they will.
Mm-hmm.
And you faulting them for that, faulting a business for being a business and expecting a business to hold super high levels of morality. I don't mean unethical. But I mean like such a high level of like, well, they're not doing it, so we shouldn't. That's not how business works. And I don't want to confuse morality with ethics. Like they should not be bribing. They should not be manipulating people behind the scenes in illegal fashions. But in a world of legal elements, their onus is and their job is not to be polite or be nice. And in short, I wouldn't expect them to. And it's Microsoft's job to compete with those types of tactics. As they do, they bought Activision, they bought Bethesda, they've acquired studios, they've acquired brands. They are working to create a working environment for their developers that is inviting to talents. Look at the way Halo Infinite was being made with contract workers that were cycling out and it was fracturing development really badly to now saying, hey, we're not going to sprint, we're not going to crunch you. That in turn makes it more inviting for talent to come. And the thought process in that business mentality is if talent wants to work for us, we're going to be making the better games 10 years from now. They're in it for the long haul. It's a different strategy. I like that it's a different strategy, but I refuse to forget that they paid for exclusivities with Limbo, with Inside, with Death's Door, with any other number of games. I fully expect to see As Dusk Falls on a competitor's platform at some point. And I get a little chafed when I see comment sections or people show up in my timeline mad at businesses for being a business. It doesn't work that way. You can be mad that a game is $70 and it's a remake. That was the big to do a few
Oh
weeks ago.
yes, yes.
Yeah, don't buy it. Buy it. Don't buy it. Okay, cool. And if you choose to tweet out about it, fine. People are choosing to follow you. That is also a transactional relationship. And if you're choosing to argue with people like that, okay, that's also transactional of your time. But I appreciate that the Brazilian board, their procedures let us have insight into this stuff, because we're also seeing Microsoft say that, Activision stuff is not must buy. Well, then why'd you buy it, right? Like, there's that fun little element of it as
There's
well. The
nothing
fact
unique about what Activision Blizzard's doing. Just okay,
then you didn't need it then. But
okay.
like
You're just doing this
they
is just fun money. 69 billion, just fun money.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm, as an Xbox primary gamer, I'm very glad to see Microsoft paying for Bethesda, paying for Activision, because that shows they want to be competitive and stay in the market, and that's great for me as their customer. Um, so
Yeah, what there's interesting context on the business side because I think the association that some people make is that business has to be cutthroat to be competitive. And I think
okay.
that's an important distinction that I draw. I draw the line in the sand there. You don't have to be a cutthroat asshole to succeed in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that that is the reality, it's grounded in old ideas. That isn't, for lack of a better term, that's an old head mentality. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be cutthroat to succeed because really, when we look at what Microsoft is aiming for and what they're trying to do, they are trying to have a service that is undeniably valuable, regardless of what your preference is, regardless of where you align with your brand loyalty. They are working to have a platform and a service
Mm-hmm.
that draws people in. And there is nothing more valuable than exclusivity, timed exclusivity, whatever the case might be, marketing deals. There's nothing more valuable than having a platform that organically draws people to it. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot buy organic growth. You really can't. And so
Mm-hmm.
that when they look towards the future and they look towards how to differentiate themselves, they're less concerned with what PlayStation is doing and more concerned about how they can make their platform the most enticing, how they can take that market share without, again, doing more some of these, because I see people in this rising me not saying, well, Xbox needs to do X. Xbox
Mm-hmm.
needs to be brutal and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. And they know that. And that's why
Right.
they are not doing that. And
And
so
not for nothing, that's why they get my monies more often. I appreciate their mindset. And that's why my room is adorned with Xbox stuff, because I appreciate that mindset. What Phil Spencer's leadership team has brought, not just him. Sometimes we evangelize just him, but like what he has brought in that mindset, that matches what I appreciate about people. Everyone can play wherever you want to play, that kind of stuff.
mhm.
And I'm willing to spend my money with them because I appreciate their tactics, their business acumen more. That's why they get more of my money. Um, and I think that is forgotten in my acknowledging of the business stuff. That doesn't mean I support it, but
Exactly.
yeah,
That's an important distinction because I see people say
yeah,
like, "Well, how come everybody's fine with Sony doing this?"
I'm
Again,
not.
like when I hear that stuff, I'm not stoked about it. That stuff is,
Yeah,
it's not. Again, as I've touched on with my history, those aren't practices that I love to hear about. And again,
right.
it
I'm not.
comes from a place where Sony is the market leader. Sony
Mm-hmm.
sees Xbox making very aggressive moves, gaining
Mm-hmm.
a lot of momentum, and so these moves, maybe desperation is harsh, but that's the word I'm going to use. A lot of
Sure.
these moves stem from a place of desperation. We need to do something in the short term
Mm-hmm.
that is aggressive, that gives us distinction while we work to shift our business and evolve our business. And again,
Mm-hmm.
that is a short term deal. Whoever is involved, Square Enix, Capcom, whoever it might be, they are benefiting from it enough to say, okay, fine, we'll
Mm-hmm.
give this to you. And so
Yeah.
again, I don't have all the info. I don't have the legal documents. I don't have the contracts. I don't know what that looks like, how much they're getting paid, but clearly the parties are agreeing to some kind of terms.
Correct. Yeah, it's not just Sony. It's not just Microsoft. It's that third party element. And I there are some game, like, let's use the $70 price point there. I don't really like that, but there are some games, Miles, where I'm absolutely 100% $70. Here you go, God of War Ragnarok, in a heartbeat, son. Last of
Again,
Us Two,
yes.
no, not for me. Like, not
Yeah.
that's not worth my okay, and when I look at the 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 first party that Sony has cultivated for themselves, they deserved that market leader in the PS4 phase. Xbox prepared and adjusted their mentality, and it's far more competitive space in this generation,
Hmm.
and I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I've
things are
benefited
going to get
so much.
interesting, y'all. Regardless of
Yeah.
how you feel about how Sony's operating, how Xbox are operating,
Hmm.
they're not. Neither one of them can kick back right now.
Neither.
They are both on
And
a combination of offensive and defensive strategies to, in PlayStation case, maintain top spot, and in Xbox's case, underdog story, the
Mhm.
comeback from the Xbox One gen to be the market leader. That's what they want. They want that
I
more
mean,
than anything.
yeah, you look at Microsoft. I have stats from just my own notes. Like Microsoft has been the market leader for like 4 months or 4 quarters in a row, despite their year over year sales declining from last year. Just as far as availability, console availability, their profit levels are up. They've sold more Series S and X consoles than the any Xbox, including the 360, to date. That's nuts. 3 quarters in a row, they've been the best or the highest selling next gen console. And they've got 4 million people that have checked out Fortnite alone's cloud streaming. And of that 4 million, Miles, 1 million were new to the Xbox ecosystem just
That's
via
huge.
xCloud. That's absolutely huge. So while we can lament the, hey, it denies this, that, or the other, Microsoft is doing so much right. That's what should be celebrated versus they're choosing to not compete on this other 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. They spent $69 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard to help satiate their audience. Dope. Dope. And if you don't like something as being anti-consumer, don't consume it. There's that element of it, you know? There's
And
so much
that's
to take in.
and the reality is you have people mad at PlayStation, you have people mad at Xbox for not
Hmm.
doing what they need to do to quote unquote compete in some spaces. But again, this hypothetical. This is not factual information. I don't have this. But if you
Hmm.
have somebody who is saying to you, they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, PlayStation's going to give us X million dollars if we do this. They want the exclusivity for Final Fantasy, for example."
Hmm.
And what if that amount is huge? What if that amount is like 10, 15, 20 million for
Hmm.
years of exclusivity? What, again, hypothetical. I don't have the numbers here. We know there
Hmm.
is some sort of deal in place for exclusivity between PlayStation and Final Fantasy currently.
Yeah.
What if Microsoft just said no? They said, you know what? That $20 million that you want for exclusivity on Final Fantasy, we can put that into other studios. We can put that
I think,
into publishing partner projects, and we can
yeah.
just make our own exclusive. We don't need to buy Final
Yeah.
Fantasy exclusivity. We're just going to do our own thing. So, what if that, again, we don't know what the conversations are behind the scenes, but I have to imagine that's the mentality that Microsoft has right now. They don't need or want to compete with every single one of these, kind of
Right.
historic business deals.
Right. I think that's exactly what you are seeing. And they're not going to go tit for tat because they're not trying to play the same game. Microsoft's concerned not just about Sony, but about Tencent, about Embracer, about Amazon. Those are people that are trying to enter into this space in one way or another. You see Tencent gobbling up chunks and market shares of things like Epic Game Store and whatnot.
Hmm?
And so Microsoft is trying to play not a tit for tat game. They're trying to go about it in a different way, and it's paying off. And if it were me, I wouldn't pay that $20 million for Final Fantasy in a world where I could go and pick up the Activision Blizzard catalog and benefit from that, whether it's multi-platform or not. Because I will say, I don't like that Spider-Man is exclusive. That's a character that I think belongs to more people. And the way Sony
Yeah,
is doing
but
Spider-Man, it bums me out, right?
mhm.
That said, Insomniac, the product that Sony helps, cultivate, that their Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man game that's ever come out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's that element, but I like the Microsoft that's not spending $20 million for tit for tat, and they're trying to play a different game because that's why Game Pass is doing what it's doing. That's why we're seeing it outsell the Xbox 360, the Xbox Series S and XR. That's why we're seeing the family plan be piloted. We're seeing xCloud do what it's doing for all the things that Sony has done well in cultivating a first party IP. Microsoft has done a number of things that allow it to stay competitive despite not having a first party release in 2022. And I get a kick out of people that are like, I'm spitting facts. This doesn't know. No, there's no first party title from Xbox coming out in 2022. And yet, Microsoft is still highly competitive, so that they have led 3 fiscal quarters in a row. Keep that in mind every time you're frustrated, and the idea of playing fair in a business sense doesn't exist. That's being mad at something that's beyond your control.
Let's
Did I
talk
get too
about.
did I get too hot on that? I apologize if I did.
No, because I agree. A lot of people come on Twitter and they come in the comments and they come in the chat and they present things as facts that aren't, that are either proven to be untrue or that don't exist. The information that you are saying does not exist. And we just
Right.
have to, I'm very careful with how I present that. Again, some people say, oh, you're not willing to dunk on PlayStation, or that's not what it's about. You just have to be careful with how you articulate it, because in this climate, some YouTuber says something
Mm-hmm.
offhand, and that is now a fact. That is
Yeah.
being used as factual information online when it is not a reality at all. So I'm just very particular and careful with how I word those things. It could
And
be a possibility, sure, yes, but don't say we know this. We don't. We don't know this.
And to be clear, the numbers that I brought up, those came from Satya Nadella's statements in a Microsoft earnings call.
Yes,
This
yes.
wasn't from YouTuber A to YouTuber B or content creator A to B. That's not how because I'm with you. I don't like the way that sometimes the conversation is monopolized by speculation in Twitter Spaces.
And again, these are complicated conversations, and that's why I'm very careful, and I appreciate you coming along with me here as we dive into some of the more complicated nuance of it all. And I'm not trying to make sweeping statements like Sony is evil, Xbox is good, Xbox is
Yeah.
the good guy, Sony's the bad guy, blah blah. Like, I'm not trying to just make those kind of sweeping statements, because that doesn't add anything to the conversation, really.
Agree.
So it seems like PlayStation is very worried about Game Pass.
Yeah, as they should be.
According to these statements from Brazil, it seems like they are very, very concerned about the momentum and potential success of Game Pass. They touched on the fact that it would take years for them to make a competitor. And while some of their comments from that last statement seemed a bit exaggerated, saying like there's no way for anyone to compete with Call of Duty, things along those lines, I do think when they say it'll take years for them to have a competitor to Game Pass, I think they mean it. I think they really, really genuinely mean it. And I think they are working toward it. And I think that's why we're seeing more games as a service title. I think that's why we are going to get PlayStation games day and date. And we are going to eventually have that big, gargantuan reveal where years down the road, after they've been preaching the quality of their games and $70 price tags, they're going to have that big moment where their business has shifted enough and they can give you day and date with PlayStation Plus Premium or whatever the most expensive tier is. You can get those games day one. We heard you. We understand you. Now you can enjoy the best games in the industry under this subscription service. So, do you feel that PlayStation is genuinely concerned and has active plans in place to match or supersede Xbox Game Pass?
Absolutely, I think they are concerned. They are right to be concerned. The business model of Game Pass seems to be built for the future, seems to be developer friendly, which entices talent to come to them. And if I'm the competitor to that, I am very concerned about it. It makes perfect sense that they would be. And as far as them having plans to compete or supersede with that, I think Sony did a good job in trying to change PlayStation Plus to be more enticing. I don't think they were successful. I think the messaging is a little confusing. The tier system, what you do and don't get, is a little bit. The rollout of that, I don't think matched what they were hoping it would do. But it shows that they are trying to adapt, and I do think they are years away from being able to do it. And let's not forget, Miles, Game Pass came out in what, 2017? It was 17 or 18. 17, I think it was, because Crackdown, Sea of Thieves, and Undead Labs State of Decay 2 were going to be the games that were like the first party titles into that. And we've had 5 years, I believe, of Game Pass. And someone please feel free to check me. I think it was 2017, but 5 years of Game Pass versus no Game Pass on Sony's side. So yeah, it's going to take time.
Yeah, it is an uphill battle. And again, I see people say, well, that's just not PlayStation's strategy. They have no interest in doing that. They have their established model, and they're going to, if you are, as we touched on with the business, if you are a business and you are seeing something do well, you do not just kick back and say, well, I guess we'll just wait and see how this plays out. We'll just we'll hope this doesn't become the standard, and we'll have no backup plan in place. We will not work towards this at all. we'll just stand by and wait for this to explode or fail. Sure, that happens in some cases, but generally speaking, that doesn't come from a market leader. Like, a market leader isn't that obtuse, and when you see momentum like Game Pass, you can't ignore it. Whether you like it or not, whether your business model is set up to support it or not, which I will say PlayStation's, from their own admissions, is not. They are not set up currently to do that. But we have seen them take steps, active steps, PC ports, the tiers for their subscription service, their announcement that they will have 12 games as a service titles coming. They are moving towards that, and they understand that. So, clearly, Game Pass is moving the needle.
Assassin did a super chat a little while back. Did you see that one? Because I have a question about.
Oh yeah, let's
comment on something.
Yeah, let's read that. So Assassin dropped a super chat saying, paying Capcom to not put Resident Evil Village into Game Pass is fine if they put it into PS Plus instead. There's a difference between paying for exclusivity and paying to block content from competitors.
Well, I'm curious because I think that's a question of vernacular or speech. And so I'm either in need of education here or in need of understanding. What's the difference in your mind, Miles, between exclusivity, paying for exclusivity and paying to block content? What's the difference there?
And as we move into the subscription wars, because the console wars are dead, long live the subscription wars, the ideals of a traditional exclusive, like a console true exclusive, that's dwindling fast. Again, people on the PlayStation side maybe don't want to admit it or agree with it. That's fine, but it doesn't change the fact that reality is shifting. We're moving away from that rapidly. People are understanding that a platform is way more important and way more profitable than a box. And so I'm a console heathen, love my consoles. I will keep buying consoles as long as they keep making them, but I know that is not the future of the video game industry when it comes to broad appeal. I don't see them going away anytime soon, but I know that's not the widespread appeal of gaming for a lot of people. So this comment here, as I touched on previously, again, and this is all hypothetical. I need to stress that a lot and often. If you are PlayStation and you know Xbox Game Pass has the potential to damage sales, if you know a game is coming out at full retail price, a huge, highly anticipated game like Resident Evil, for example, you have entered a marketing agreement, so you are the primary person paying to advertise this game. You're paying for the spots, you're paying for the trailers, you are paying to advertise this. And then the game comes out, it has all this momentum, all of this energy, and then a lot of people just go to Xbox Game Pass and get it on there and not buy it on your platform. I mean, again, it's as much as it isn't like exciting to hear, are you going to fault PlayStation for that behavior? Because I know if I spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to advertise something, I wouldn't want somebody to have the option to just download it on Game Pass, at least for a little bit, at least, get the initial boost at launch. And again, I'm not saying I'm stoked about that. I'm not saying I support that, but I'm just saying in that case, I don't think it's an unreasonable ask to not have your launch sale potential tanked if you've paid to market a game. But again, as we touched on, Capcom agreed to this deal. Capcom, in this case, again, hypothetical, Capcom hypothetically would have to agree to this deal. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
It's tough to navigate, but it'd be cool. There's a world where we get to find out everything in the Brazilian.
Yes, I want all the juicy detail. I want everything to come out. I want somebody to just quit one of these days and be like, screw it. All right, here we go. Here's what really went down. Like, I want that. So again, and it almost never happens in this industry. I know there's NDAs. I know there's a lot of things in place that make it so we'll never truly get that information in the way that we want, but we all want it. And that's why we have these theories and speculation and all these conversations surrounding it, because it is interesting to say, like, well, what if this wild, evil thing was the reality?
Agree. Okay.
All right. Let's talk on this is PlayStation's comments and Microsoft's response to PlayStation's comments about it being impossible to compete with Call of Duty. Sony is limited to commenting on Call of Duty's brand strength and loyalty and engagement. However, claiming that Call of Duty has a loyal following is a premise from which the conclusion that the game is a category of games in itself does not follow. PlayStation itself has a foundation established by players loyal to the brand. This finding, however, does not lead to the conclusion that the PlayStation, or any branded product with loyal consumers, is a separate market from all other consoles. Extrapolating from such a finding, the extreme conclusion that Call of Duty is a game category in and of itself is simply unjustifiable under any quantitative or qualitative analysis. So, we touched on this a little bit last week, but do you really think there's no means and no opportunity for any shooter to come out and compete with Call of Duty? I think there's any basis to those types of comments.
No, not at all. I don't think it makes sense. Like, we've seen Call of Duty struggle, Call of Duty Vanguard being the most recent example. We've seen Call of Duty ebb and flow with the industry. We've seen other games take chunks out of Call of Duty's massive user base. The thing is that they're so big, they can take hits repetitively and still have a huge following. And that's why Call of Duty is Call of Duty. But like, every game, and this is a broader sense of it, but every game that operates on a battle pass or has a battle royale or has competitive TDM or whatever you want to go with, that demands a player's time, is in some way a competitor to Call of Duty, right? I don't think that's what they're saying, that they're directly referencing, but we've seen games with better mechanics come out. I would cite Titanfall 2. We've seen at one time Battlefield doing a good job at siphoning some of the player base. I don't think Battlefield's done that in recent, but Call of Duty absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Apex Legends just hit its highest concurrent player count, which I think was over 500,000 players on Steam alone.
That's insane.
That's nothing to scuff at.
Nothing to scuff at. There's Destiny, the Destiny franchise, Destiny's 1 and 2 at various points have done a great job at existing in a first-person shooter space. And then Fortnite is another example of a game that exists in that same space of competitive play and battle royale. And Fortnite itself is having to adjust. They created a no build mode, something that was once said to never be possible, and then there we are. I love no build mode.
Oh, it's big same. I maybe I just sucked at building, so that was my grief. And I'll admit I sucked because I had no desire to get good at building because I didn't really like it in the fundamentals of the game. So yeah, no build mode. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. Now it feels like a third-person shooter with my action figures. It's cool, and it makes me want a Halo Battle Royale. I don't care what anyone says. I think that'd be so cool to have drop pods coming in with resource. Oh, so cool. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, I think there are plenty of games that can compete with Call of Duty, but it is silly to not say anything other than it's a juggernaut, and whoever owns it is going to be raking in cash. My hope, though, Miles, is that come June 2023, when the transaction is done and Microsoft is the owner, should that come to pass, we hear about a more conducive working environment for those developers. Hopefully they find ways to free up some of those older legacy studios like Toys for Bob to make really fun mascot platformers again. And I would hope that would happen. So I think I veered away from your question. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're totally fine. Yeah, it's just interesting when PlayStation really looks at the value, because there is value in Call of Duty, and that is the reason that PlayStation puts so much money into the marketing deal, to lock down, the exclusive map content, to lock down early access to demos, and really establish the fact that if you are a Call of Duty fan, much like they did with Destiny, you should be playing here. And as we've seen with Destiny, that can be powerful. That can set a precedent. You can pull your friends over to that platform. And once your friends go to that platform and that becomes the normal place to play, it's hard to pull them from that. And I think that's really what PlayStation is worried about here with Call of Duty, is that, people will have the association. Call of Duty is an Xbox thing. So Call of Duty is the main game I play every year. I'm going to get an Xbox. I'm going to go over there. Let's say they start throwing stuff in Game Pass. Let's say they start throwing stuff in Xbox Game Pass Ultimate perks for Call of Duty. And so that you're going to get the best stuff on Xbox. And so if that is your main game, which for a lot of people it is, Call of Duty is a big deal, you're just going to go there. Your friends are going to go there. And that is what PlayStation is worried about. Because once they are gone, it is so hard to get them back. And as we
I mean,
saw, 360 used to be the
yeah,
Call of Duty box.
yes.
360 used to be the bro box, the Call of Duty Madden machine, dude.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was it. If you played Call of Duty, you were on 360, bro.
Mhm.
They lost that.
There
And
is a
they lost a lot of money with that.
absolutely there is a huge, huge element to like if you have Call of Duty and you're tied into marketing, your box is going to do well. PS4 and 360 are our most
Mhm.
recent examples.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see how, when this deal goes through, how Xbox is going to manage the Call of Duty brand. It is going to stay multi platform. They'd be silly not to, if we're being honest. But how will they navigate the cloud space, the PC space? How are they going to navigate the franchise once this current iteration of Call of Duty is done? In the next versions, what's going to happen under the Xbox version of Call of Duty? That's going to be really cool because you're right. When somebody says, "I'm buying this box for Call of Duty and Madden," then they're willing to spend money more. That's the whole Game Pass model. I'm getting it
Mhm.
for this game, and then suddenly you start exploring, and suddenly you start spending, and then you're investing in. That's why free to play exists, right? That's why Fall Guys shifted its business model to free to play
Yeah.
because now you're buying cosmetics. Now you're doing this. Now you're doing that. That's why Apex Legends, to your point, that launched pretty content light for like a year. Didn't have much. And now you're getting battle passes and transaction modes and stuff. They
Mhm.
want you in, and once they get you in, they can keep you in. It's much cheaper in the business world to keep an existing customer than bring in a new one. And so Microsoft spent a crap ton of money to bring in new, and they're going to try and keep them systemically year over year.
I used my sister as an example recently because we've been playing some stuff together recently after a long time of not, and because of crossplay and the ability to play together. Because she is a diehard, dedicate, ride or die PlayStation. Like all of her friends are on PlayStation. She loves
Mhm.
PlayStation. She used to joke that she would never get an Xbox. And
Mhm.
we've been playing together, and most of my group is on Xbox, and we talk about things like the party chat, Xbox Game Pass, and all of these things. And now she's hitting me up about like, yo, where do I get a Series X? Like, where's the best place to get a Series X? And so this ride or die PlayStation person is seeing the benefits of Xbox and understand like she loves For Honor. For Honor, one of her favorite games. She's a hard
Cool.
like thousands of hours into For Honor.
Mhm.
And she's like, okay, well, if I buy an Xbox, I'm gonna have to buy For Honor again. I'm gonna have to buy
Mhm.
Dead by Daylight again. And I'm like, no, you're not. Those are an Xbox Game Pass. And she's like, what?
Mhm.
That's just an Xbox, so I can just buy an Xbox and I can play hundreds of games. Like, yeah, it's really that easy. And she's like, damn, okay, well, I need to reconsider some things here. And so that has weight. And like I said, once you lose that loyalty in some ways,
Mhm.
it's hard to gain it back.
Mhm.
So Game Pass is a scary thing. Game Pass, and again, the reason that Microsoft gets away with what they get away with and they are allowed to be so aggressive is they have the backing of Microsoft. And Xbox is a
Yeah.
big brand. Xbox is 9% of Microsoft. Xbox is just a tiny piece of this
Little
pie.
smidgen.
And
And
so,
yet Phil Spencer sits next to him at board meetings, which says they're serious.
yes,
That's the cool part.
that's a cool part. And for a competitor, that's a scary part. When
Mhm.
you see Microsoft come out and pay $69 billion
Mhm.
to buy up one of the biggest brands that's associated with PlayStation, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Like, they're not going to come out and say that they're scared because, again, maybe scared is inflammatory, but you are stressing when that can be
Yeah.
the reality. When you can wake up and see that headline that Microsoft is going to have this publisher, that is
Yeah.
not a lot of people can compete
The
with that.
potential damage to sales for PlayStation to lose to potentially lose different things is wonderful for competition. And I dare say that in the future, they can't do this yet, but in the future, if we start seeing people play the game of chicken with keeping content exclusive or whatnot, oh, you're keeping Spider-Man, we're keeping this, they're keeping that. That is a possibility. I don't think it exists in a, again, I brought up the tit for tat way, but when the danger of losing X content because you're keeping other content, that's going to create a whole nother type of war in and of itself. Think about this is an interesting example because people have a lot of thoughts on the game, but Marvel's Avengers, the character of Spider-Man was kept exclusive to the PlayStation community.
Yes. Uh-huh.
In truth, that damaged that game tenfold. That game needed Spider-Man and it needs crossplay. The gameplay itself, it persists. People called it dead. It's still going 2 years later with multiple new campaigns and characters, but crossplay and Spider-Man would have done a huge benefit to that property, and it damaged it because of that exclusivity. So that's the opposite of productive. And so these little lessons, if they keep this character exclusive and damage this, what's going to happen to that? And I'm curious to see if that takes form over the next 5 years.
And tying back to my experience in the business world.
Okay.
No one likes to be forced to do anything. Sure. It's just human nature. Mm-hmm. When the Xbox One bundled in Kinect, there was unending outcry that some people will never ever forget. They were forced to buy this thing that they do not want. You are a business partner with PlayStation, and you are in a situation where you need to take this deal for whatever financial reasons to, keep things afloat. There's a lot of things to juggle when you are a publisher or a developer to, keep people paid, keep things moving. If somebody comes to you and puts you in a situation where, okay, we're going to help you out, but you have to do this. Mm-hmm. Once you get into a position where you don't have to do that, chances are you're going to resent the fact that you were forced to do that in the first place. And if somebody comes to you and says, here's a deal where you don't have to do that, they will jump on that deal in a heartbeat. And if that is how Sony has been acting behind the scenes as the platform leader, as the market leader, and they've been putting these publishers in positions where they're using their market leverage to basically bully them into deals that they're not super stoked about, the second that they lose that market leader position, you will see a dramatic shift in the way that publishers interact with that publisher. And that is the hard reality. And that's probably another worry for PlayStation losing this market leader position. Again, hypothetical. I don't have the reality. I don't know what the reality is behind the scenes. But if Sony was using their weight to bully in deals, that will hurt them horrifically once they lose that top spot.
Agree.
So you're scared. When you are the top, you don't want to not be the top, especially if you've done some things that you're not proud of to get to the top. So it'll be really interesting. Like we talked about, this generation in particular, exciting. Competition is fierce on all sides, regardless of what your loyalty is, what brand you want to scream about on Twitter. All of the video game giants right now are really throwing down. And they are saying, this is the reason you need to play our stuff. It's not even an option. You have to come here to play stuff because we have stuff that you want to play. That's the reason that Starfield is an exclusive. We see Xbox, people are saying, well, Xbox is only playing nice. They're never the mean ones. They're going to come out and make Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive. Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah.
You can't tell me they're only being the nice guys in that scenario.
Agree. Fully agree.
They were the nice guys. Elder Scrolls 6, you can play it wherever you want. We know it's an established franchise. We know you guys love it. You can play it wherever you want. And they're not doing that consistently. So
we can be fans of any brand, game, franchise, but evangelizing them and thinking they're something they're not is, I think, a disservice to ourselves.
We are still paying for Xbox Gold, y'all. That is something I bring up constantly because, again, I know Microsoft's very gamer-friendly, very consumer-friendly, and I appreciate that. I applaud their efforts, but they are also arbitrarily charging people on the console to play games online. There's, outside of them making money, there is no justifiable reason why Xbox first-party games have no paywall on PC, and in some cases no paywall on mobile, but have a paywall on console. Outside of the fact that that's an established stream of money. So again, I'm very critical of that because that is Xbox transparently saying this is in place until we have something that supplements this money. And again, I understand that they are a business. I'm not going to fault them for making money, but that shows that Microsoft is, much like Sony, very concerned about how much money they're making month over month.
Yep. Fully agree.
All right. One last comment one last quote I want to pull from this. And actually, huge shout out to everyone who's joining us live. If you are digging the show, digging these, sensitive conversations on the developments regarding PlayStation and Xbox and the Activision Blizzard acquisition, hit that like button and share this video out. This is Microsoft's comment on exclusivity regarding Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard. Microsoft has publicly stated its desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, as well as the intention to continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles on Sony's. With the commitment to do so, in addition to existing contractual arrangements, there's a section here that says restricted access, so something was pulled. In this regard, players will continue to have access to Activision Blizzard content, including Call of Duty, through traditional buy-to-play channels such as the PlayStation console. The fact reduces players' incentive to migrate to Game Pass, as they'll be able to continue subscribers to their preferred service. Example, Sony's PlayStation Plus. And in addition, easily buy a copy of Call of Duty. So this is not the first time that someone from Xbox has said, yo, Call of Duty is not going to be exclusive. It's not going to be 100% exclusive. You will still be able to just straight out buy Call of Duty on PlayStation, is what this quote is saying here. So what do you think the future of Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard exclusivity looks like moving forward once this deal closes?
You're asking me like what I think? I think you see Call of Duty multi-platform. I do think you see it over on PlayStation. Again, Microsoft has said multiple times it's not profitable to buy Call of Duty as a franchise and then not put it on PlayStation. And I think that's the right choice, by the way, at least for the time being. If you can gradually move that user base into buying an Xbox, we go back to our conversation a few minutes ago about marketing and people picking up an Xbox instead of a PlayStation or PlayStation instead of an Xbox because of one or two games. But right now, it makes very little sense for them to keep that franchise exclusive. I do think you see a number of Game Pass perks. The same perks, by the way, that you saw 360 getting when they got map packs early. The same perks you saw PlayStation getting when they got beta access early. For goodness sakes, the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta is coming to PlayStation first. And then a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, it's coming to Xbox. That came out in the last week or so. And so you'll see those types of things transition once the deal is done and the marketing has been honored from previous deals. And eventually, Miles, by the time I think it is truly said and done, you're just going to be logging into a service on whatever plastic box anyway. And that's the end game for Game Pass, is you log in on your Samsung TV, on your telecommunications device of your choice, on your Steam Deck 2 or whatever. You just log in and you play. And I'm actually very excited for that future because not a big fan of the engineering behind the PlayStation 5. Not a big fan of it, but I would like to just log in to PSN and play Spider-Man wherever.
Yeah,
right.
That'd be dope.
I would love to log in and play Halo wherever. Yeah, exactly. Just I want to log in and play, and I don't want to lose my achievements because it's my legacy. Since 2006, I've been using this gamer tag, right? You can go back in, you can look at all my achievements, you can see when I was a shill and rented Avatar for 1,000 gamer score. You can see when I grinded to get 100% in Red Dead Redemption. Like those are memories I don't want to lose, but I don't need the box. I need my login. I need my name.
So it's interesting when we talk about the exclusive possibilities for Call of Duty, Activision Blizzard. I see a lot of people say that Xbox needs to come out and make Call of Duty exclusive, basically as a means of punishing PlayStation, punishing the PlayStation fan base, and forcing them to buy an Xbox. Again, as I touched on, nobody likes to be forced to do anything. No, nobody. It doesn't matter what it is, what facet of your life. Nobody likes to be forced to do anything. And so if you are Microsoft and you do that, for some people, you are villainizing this game. You are villainizing this franchise. You are villainizing this platform. But if you are Microsoft and you say, you know what? You can keep playing Call of Duty on PlayStation. You don't want to fracture this audience. There will be cross-play. You'll be able to play with your friends on PlayStation. But then you come out and say, guess what, though? That's a $70 game. You can play that on day one Xbox game for no additional cost. You get this $70 game in Game Pass. And you know what? Beyond that, you sign up for Xbox Game Pass, you give us a little more. We're going to give you a little more, baby. Guess what? We're going to throw you the first season pass. That's on us. So this new Call of Duty comes out, huge. People are ready to play it. Modern Warfare 2. Guess what, dude? Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. We're gonna give you an expansion pass. Maybe we'll give you some more expansion passes or battle passes to keep you locked into the subscription service.
Oh yeah.
And then you have those people. You have your friends who are playing Call of Duty. You have your ride or die Call of Duty group, and now they're like, dude, we play Call of Duty every year. Xbox is gonna give it to us in Game Pass. And they're going to give us the battle passes. I think I'm getting an Xbox, dog.
Yeah.
And then your buddy's like, damn it, dude. Okay, fine. I'll get an Xbox too.
And the one that's like, damn it, I don't know what to do. They're going to be like, oh, wait, you're telling me the Series S is $250 on Black Friday with a Game Pass subscription? It's this small barrier to entry and I can still download and get access to all that. That's the trick, right? You know, that's the trick. That's the benefit of that 2 SKU approach, because with respect to the digital and digital only and the disc-based version of the PS5, it doesn't feel the same as the Series S and X, and that's anecdotal, but like I don't feel that they compete necessarily with each other the way that the Series S and X do. When you can get a barrier to entry that's so low into the Xbox world and have access to those battle passes and you're getting those perks and you got Game Pass, yeah, the transition's a lot easier. It's easier for 12-year-old Timmy to go to mom and say, hey, mom, can we get an Xbox? It's only this much versus that much.
See,
difference.
Forced exclusivity, that is a way to get users in. Because there will be the diehard Call of Duty people who say, okay, I guess I'm buying an Xbox.
It happened with Destiny.
Yeah.
They had exclusive. I'm sorry, I cut you off again.
Yeah, no, you're all good. So, yeah, so people will do it. But something that is infinitely more valuable and something that will build your platform up and pull people in organically, as we touched on, is just having that value proposition. You have the option. You always want to empower the option for the player, but when your option is undeniably the best option, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? And that, again, when we talk about all of these things that PlayStation has addressed, all these concerns that they have regarding the deal, why the reasons they don't want the deal to go through is because Xbox Game Pass and Call of Duty in particular, that is a recipe for a huge shift in their audience, because they're undeniably, there is a huge percentage of people who associate Call of Duty with PlayStation right now. And if you shift that towards Xbox, PlayStation loses a huge chunk of its community permanently, or at least until the next shift in exclusive, until whatever. I don't see anyone buying Activision from Xbox at this point, but at least for a long time, you lose that community.
Yep, I agree.
So it's interesting. There's a lot of factors to touch on. Another thing that came out of this is Xbox came out and said that Call of Duty being exclusive wouldn't be profitable. That's not a verbatim quote, but they basically came out and said that, we're not going to do this because it's not profitable. And so that is interesting as well, because there's a lot of conspiracies surrounding this, a lot of speculation that basically suggested that same thing, that they're not going to do it because it wouldn't be profitable. What's your take on hearing Xbox say that?
It's the perfect example. It's the perfect response, right? Like, I mean, I feel like I'm exhausting. I don't. Ask me again, Miles. Let me think about this again.
Okay. So my thought on this is that I don't know that it's inherently not profitable in the sense that they would not make any money. But when you compare that to what Call of Duty is and how much money Call of Duty makes, I think Call of Duty, and the main reason that Xbox is looking at this acquisition is because Call of Duty is a business of its own. And that business, if you keep that business multi-platform, you keep it going. Sure, it's not going to be every year, which, hallelujah. Please don't do a Call of Duty every year. I'm begging you. But if you still have it consistent, you have it to be this platform, that is continuous revenue. That is money that is coming into your platform. And that is money that you can turn around and you can invest into new IP. You can invest into exclusive. That is the reason that Sony bought Bungie and said, you know what? You can be multi-platform. Go for it. That is more money in our pockets. We need that continuous revenue to support our endeavors, to help us get closer to that Game Pass competitor. And so that's how I look at Call of Duty, and I think that's how Xbox looks at Call of Duty as well. I do think we will see certain Activision Blizzard properties exclusive down the road.
Sure.
Whether it be new IP, whether it be sequels, however. But I do think when we look at Call of Duty, that is a sector of business that they just want to keep that money coming in. and that'll
Absolutely.
offset the cost of anything else that they want to do.
Yeah, you keep Call of Duty multi-platform. You allow Call of Duty Mobile to keep flourishing. Pretty good mobile game, from what I understand. You allow Call of Duty to permeate, and then you let Toys for Bob create the next Spyro or the next Skylanders or whatnot, and let your platform swim in the rest of the IP that Activision has. You identify Diablo with Xbox. You identify Skylanders with Xbox. You identify all of these things, and you use the distribution that acquiring King, which is under Activision Blizzard, you use the distribution that Call of Duty Mobile has to incentivize and bring people towards Game Pass and your brand. If you are playing Call of Duty Mobile, maybe they drop an Xbox back bling or some variation. You know what I mean? Like something to raise brand awareness. But let Call of Duty be in multiple places. Why not? You know, uh, it, Call of Duty doesn't need to be exclusive. There needs to be exclusive things for the community that's got the marketing deal or the ownership of it. Simple as that.
Exactly. So when Microsoft makes those comments about profitability, again, a lot of people aren't looking at the big picture. They're not looking at the context of that, and they're just saying, well, Microsoft couldn't do it. They couldn't make it exclusive. I don't think that's the case. I don't think
Yeah.
that is the case. At a certain point, they could absolutely make Call of Duty exclusive, and maybe down the road, that's what they end up doing once they've thoroughly just gutted PlayStation's audience and pulled all of the Call of Duty fans and established themselves as the Call of Duty box yet again. Maybe they shift to that. But again, I hope that it's just this supplemental means so we get more new IP, we get more cool exclusive, because the fact that Call of Duty remains multi.
Agree. Absolutely.
And I will
Yeah.
say, I've seen some of the stuff from Blizzard's future. I've seen some gameplay for new Blizzard projects, and I gotta say,
Ooh, a little insider knowledge here.
I'm getting increasingly excited about the future of Blizzard in particular, because they had a negative streak. They had a lot of games that were not received well. Diablo Immortal, another really negative piece of
Yep.
PR for them, even though they're making $100 million a month, so
They're making
they're
so much
they're
money.
doing fine financially, but negative PR from the gamer sphere. But
Yep.
there were a lot of misses from Blizzard, so it's been cool to see Diablo 4 look excellent, look amazing. Everything I've heard about that has me amped up, ready to go day one. And then to see some insights into what's coming next.
It's good. It's good.
Good. All right. Here, 2 hours, but we're gonna keep on cruising. So if you are appreciating this marathon episode, and Luke, if you have the time to hang out and chat further, we got a couple
A
more
little bit more.
topics. Oh, all right. So yeah, digging it. Hit that like button. Share it out. Gamescom 2022, just a few weeks away. We're coming hot off the back of Summer Game Fest, all of the streams and showcases associated with that event. And Jeff Keighley's prepping opening night live, baby. Jeff Keighley's back at it, promising more new game reveals. And we got some details of roughly what we can expect. So Jeff Keighley is saying it's going to have a 2-hour runtime. There are going to be 20 plus games on stage, and it will be a mix of new announcements and previously announced stuff. He has also gone on to say that there will be cool surprises and stuff you wouldn't expect. So, Luke, what do you want to see at Gamescom? And I'll pitch this question to the people in the chat, too. If you're in the chat, let us know what you want to see at Gamescom. What are you hoping to see there at this show?
I love these kind of questions, and I also hate them because oftentimes I don't have the creative mind to tell you what I want. I need the creators of something to show me what I want, right? There's that it's an inverse of the Steve Jobs quote kind of thing. At Gamescom, what I want to see are concrete gameplay elements for the next Xbox games coming out. That is to say, we've seen a lot of stuff surrounding Redfall and Starfield, but we don't really know much else. We know nothing about, in terms of gameplay, what's going on with Hellblade 2. We don't know really if Everwild's going to be a thing. It seems like it's in a little bit of trouble. We're seeing a lot of things take time. The problem with Xbox is we know so many of their projects, right? So I want to see gameplay from it. The promise of Game Pass is a high quality, consistent cadence of top tier titles. It's time to see gameplay of that. We're into 2022. We've navigated the pandemic, work from home, build up structures. Now I think at this point it's fair to expect that they've figured out how to work from home or whatnot, and given their employees what they need in terms of bandwidth, in terms of hardware, to continue creating. They need to master it. I think the proof is in the pudding when it comes to Microsoft's huge catalog. There was some speculation around whether or not Xbox was doing enough to reduce bottlenecking and pipeline structure. Gamescom needs to showcase gameplay for their next games. It also needs to deliver on, I think, some Halo content. Show us what, like, official, not leaked, but official looks into Forge, into what they're looking to do for Season 3, if Project Tatanka is going to come to pass. That's the Battle Royale. Because November could potentially be a huge month for Halo. Are you going to let it be? Is it time? Is it not time?
I mean, it's time. It's past time. Let's be real. It's way past time for Halo to have a good month.
Yeah. Yeah. And the gameplay's still great. Jumped in the other day. Gameplay is still top tier. Infinite's still a great game. But that's a platform. What you got?
What you got,
and
baby?
Joseph Staten, I loved his recent comments. He was developers on a recent podcast. They know how players feel. Cool. I'm ready for them to be ready to show us something, So Gamescom, show me some stuff I don't know about. Show me some gameplay for things I do know about. I think you probably save Hellblade for Game Awards.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the continued relationship building that Microsoft's doing with Jeff Keighley, because whether you love him or hate him, huge influencer in the industry, massive insider, and the ability to create a competitor to E3, to create an award show that is industry watched and appreciated and loved. So you need an ally in that space. And so cheers to that.
Yeah, I know Jeff gets some flack from certain folks, and I think he's partly a victim of the console war mentality, I think, is where a lot of that stems from. But he usually puts on a fun show. And when he is saying things like there will be things you wouldn't expect, it has me a little more interested. His last, even Summer Game Fest, he came out and said, like, pump the brakes, y'all. Please don't expect the world from this. Like, there will be cool stuff, but most of this is not going to be new releases. So please don't lambast me when it's not like Silent Hill or whatever. So this time around, he is saying there's going to be some cool surprises and stuff you wouldn't expect.
Agree.
I will say, when it comes to Xbox has also provided some context for what to expect. So they're going to do a stream, and the stream will have Minecraft Legends, Grounded, Pentiment, High on Life, Lies of Pi, the Pinocchio Souls-like, which I'm honestly stoked for, really amped for that. So they have given some context, and they will be doing a stream there. They have also said, and I know this was controversial at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, but everything they are showing next 12 months. Again, they're reiterating that everything they're showing at this show is the next 12 months again. So that, to me, crosses off stuff like probably Hellblade, Fable, Everwild, State of Decay 3, all the stuff that people want to see. Like all the big stuff, I think they've pretty much confirmed will not be there. So I would say on the Xbox side, don't expect that. They have told you not to expect that. But I am curious to see Pentiment in action. We got that reveal. I want to see gameplay of that. I am curious to see more High on Life. That game looks really, really fun. When it comes to the overall Gamescom, we talk about what could be there. Tinfoil hat time, y'all. Strap it on. Put on those tinfoil hats. Let's do it, because Hideo Kojima, he's been on Twitter. He's been on Twitter again, and you know what he's doing on Twitter? He's editing. He's editing video right before Gamescom. And so everyone's like, oh, damn, Kojima's editing his next trailer for Gamescom, baby. And so I gotta say, the way that they revealed the Xbox collaboration at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, kind of weird.
It was odd.
A little bit odd to me. And they also said, remember when they said everything you are going to see at the showcase is coming in the next 12 months.
They did say that. You're right.
They didn't say everything but the Kojima project is going to be coming in the next 12 months.
True.
So, are we going to see the reveal at Gamescom? Are we going to see the trailer for the Kojima Xbox game?
Gamescom or Game Awards, one of the two.
One of the two.
Um,
Is it
yep, one of the two.
is Gamescom too small? Do we need the Game Awards for it? Or is Xbox going to lean into something else, something bigger? The Fable gameplay reveal, is that going to be at the Game Awards this year? I don't know.
It's weird because Microsoft's also doing a 6-hour live stream with Gamescom, and that's a lot of time to fill. That's a lot of time to fill. I hate answering you with I don't know. So
I mean, nobody knows. That's why we're talking about it.
Right, but like I don't even have an inkling. I'm not an insider by nature. I occasionally stumble on stuff, but I'm not an insider by nature. I don't even have an inkling of what Xbox is going to show here. And that I think is the most frustrating and the most exciting part. Trying to keep, expectations in check. My expectations for the Game Awards are very high. Gamescom, though, is an unknown quantity. Xbox is the biggest first party that's going to be there. Sony's not showing up. Nintendo's sniffing glue. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but they've got to show something cool, something new, and on a big scale. But I do appreciate in their Xbox Wire post, Miles, they did a good job at spotlighting third-party stuff, while their first party was mostly stuff we'd seen before and Pentiment, which feels smaller. A lot of people are excited about Pentiment based on the dev team. I hate that once again I'm not one of them because it's not my game and type in any way, shape, or form.
It's not. I wouldn't say humongous widespread appeal. It's going to have like an audience. I think like Disco Elysium that's just passionate about that narrative experience, and I think it'll get a lot of conversation going there. But yeah, the average person, I don't know, is like amped out of their mind for it.
Right. Exactly. And so I feel like the worst guest in the world on the account of the fact that like I don't have any great. You're gonna see Hellblade 3 and 4 there because they're making a trilogy built simultaneously. I just don't have that in me at the moment.
Sorry. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. As I look to what could be there are some things that I would like to see, but 2 hours is a lot of time. 2 hours, it's 2 hours and 20 games, over 20 games.
I thought it was a 6-hour live stream. Do I have this mixed up?
Well, Xbox is doing. I'm talking about opening night live. Sorry, specifically.
Oh, okay.
The Xbox stream is a separate thing, and it will mostly focus on previously announced stuff. I don't think it might even exclusively focus on previously announced stuff. Might be wrong there, but I think they've set that expectation. But Gamescom, when you look at new events that could be opening or new games at opening night live, there are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of things that could be shown. And I know Jeff is trying to establish each of these shows as something to go see. Summer Game Fest, Gamescom opening night live, and the Game Awards. He wants you tuning in, and if he can, it doesn't have to be every year, but every once in a while, if he can just slip in one big reveal at one of these shows, he'll get that word of mouth. He'll get people talking. So even though it's impossible to have nothing but bangers every single year, but the possibility of a banger reveal will get people to tune in. As we know, people want those new reveals.
And with the continued strengthening of Microsoft and Keighley's relationship, I mean, they did the Series X at his show. They're building relationships with him. That's a good thing. And they're the only big first party here. So you got to see something cool. And the next 12 months, a Kojima game, it falls in line with your logic is sound.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe there was a blog post that said like, oh yeah, Kojima's game is the exception to our everything's coming in 12 months. But I did think that was an interesting piece of that showcase where you come out and announce that a partnership is happening with just Kojima and no logo, no trailer, and then you're telling people it's coming in 12 months. So that I did think was interesting, and maybe it is coming later, and maybe I missed it. And if I did, let me know. But I am kind of wondering if Xbox wanted that segment of the showcase to have that "We are committed to Japan" segment, which I thought was incredibly valuable. I thought that was an incredibly important thing to do because people like myself in the community have been very vocal about that. So I did love that was part of it. And you have Kojima come out as part of your Xbox show and say, I'm doing a game that I could never do with Xbox, and I'm excited about that. That has weight, and then you leverage some other events. And you still give... Because again, Kojima and Jeff, they're best buddies. They are best buddies. Any big reveal that's Kojima-related, it's going to be at a Jeff show. It's
Mm-hmm.
just gonna be at a Jeff show. So as much as it would be awesome to see it at an Xbox showcase, I think they're gonna. That was a that was a gimme. Like Xbox said, come on, Jeff, let us have this. Let us get Kojima out here. Let's get that association. And Jeff's like, okay, but I want the trailer at Gamescom. Like, all right, fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jeff. Only because we like you.
Okay, buddy.
Okay, there, Jeff. Fine, dude. So again, I don't know. I would love to see it. We got Gamescom and we have Tokyo Game Show. That's coming up as well. So
You have to think Xbox is going to be there to continue strengthening that relationship.
Yes. You have to imagine that. I would hope that we see one of the Xbox Japan publishing projects revealed there. Like one of the, because they have come out on Twitter and they have said that they have some really big, exciting, high profile projects in the works in Japan. And so to get one of those at Tokyo Game Show, the Japan focused game show, again, that furthers that message that Xbox isn't fair weather about Japan. They are really making sure that they are continuous and consistent with their investments.
Right. Agree.
So yeah, I'll give you one. I think maybe possibly we see a Kojima thing. That's it. That's my official prediction. We maybe could possibly see one Kojima thing. Going out on a limb here. Big risk.
I'm gonna risk a biscuit and say you see State of Decay 3 somehow.
What? I mean, I would love. I want to play State of Decay 3 right now.
I scrolled the list and I was like, this one.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's your official. Love it. Sometimes you just got to manifest it.
Yeah.
I know I said I wouldn't talk about Phantom Dust, but I'm gonna bring it up again. I'm gonna bring it up again here because I've been, joking with Matt Higginson. Might have butchered his last name. The studio head of Cold Iron Studios. Because I said that would be a good team for a Phantom Dust reboot. I got him. Get him on board, y'all. He says he would love to experiment with that IP. I tagged Xbox Game Publishing in that and said, yo, let's get the call going. Obviously, you got to get the original designer involved. You have to get the OG creator involved. Then you get Cold Iron Studios to develop. That's a dream project. Let's go. I'd put it on your doorstep, Xbox Game Studios. The only other thing that I could do to help Phantom Dust exist is to develop the game myself. Is that what it's going to take? I'm going to have to send you a finished build of Phantom Dust.
I feel like Phantom Dust and Scalebound are both in the ether of like, people really want it. It's not a real thing,
Don't you dare compare Phantom Dust to Scalebound. Don't you dare do that.
Chose violence in hour 3.
All right, do you want to talk about Sea of Thieves or do you want to wrap this up? I know we've gone a little bit later.
We've gone long. Let's do we can't not talk about Sea of Thieves. Let's briefly go. I gotta give the shout out to
one of the main reasons that I wanted you on is because last week I had Sea of Thieves Season 7 on the docket. But again, towards the tail end of the show, we are over 2 hours and I just touched on it really quick. But I know you and I shared that special Sea of Thieves bond. You and I both put a lot of time into Sea of Thieves. We're both very fond of Sea of Thieves. And there's been a lot of controversial conversations surrounding the game since its launch. And I wanted to touch on the current state of the game with you while I have a fellow Sea of Thieves super fan here. Let's start with Season 7. Yeah. What are your thoughts and how are you feeling about the incorporation of milestones and captaincy, the two obvious highlights from this?
Well, Season 7 to me has launched fantastically. They managed a huge influx of players with minimal disruption here and there. The captaincy update, for anyone that doesn't know, this was meant to be in the first update to the game. They were planning to let people be captains of their ships in the very beginning, and instead, it took 4 or 5 years for it to happen. But I feel like they've done a really good job. They certainly have done, or they've been very conscious of new players in every update, inviting new players in. And the ships are not very expensive in the grand scheme. The most expensive ship that you can buy as a captain is a galleon, and that's at 500,000 gold, which in truth is not hard to acquire within 10 hours of gameplay. And that's a pretty minimal buy-in for an update that's designed for long term. Really like the idea behind milestones, the idea that what's happening to anyone that's unaware is they're tracking a number of things that they had not previously tracked and awarding you little elements of your ship that you can customize based on your gameplay. If you play more Order of Souls missions, you're going to get more Order of Souls type of things to decorate. Um, it has bothered some completionists. It would take thousands upon thousands of hours to get certain milestones because they're never ending, they're ongoing.
Yep.
Um, I understand that, but they've also come out a week after the update and said, "Hey, we heard feedback on this, that, and the other, like sleeping. You had to sleep for way too long. Why do you want to sleep? That takes away gameplay." And they're adjusting things, they're giving feedback, but in large part, this has been a huge update in terms of quality of life, and I'm really impressed with it. I've had some great voyages since we started. I crossed my 900-hour mark in the game.
Yeah.
Uh, I have 3 ships: the Apparition's Ghost, which is my sloop; the Apparition, which is my brig; and the Apparition's Gaze, which, Ghost and Sipiga. It's just the theme. But I'm loving it, man. I'm getting stones unlocked. I'm having fun. There's a few things I want changed, but I'm happy, Miles. I'm really happy with the update.
Big same. As I've touched on many times on this show and online, I love Sea of Thieves.
Mhm.
In my opinion, the most important new IP from Xbox in a very, very long time. Incredibly innovative, unique online social experience. There is no social game like Sea of Thieves. As much as people complain about certain aspects of it, there is nothing like Sea of Thieves in it. And it is so hard in this day and age to come out and make a game that is unlike anything else and have it succeed and have it do well. So to see this game continue to grow and evolve, as someone who championed it even early on, even when there wasn't a lot of content, objectively it was very grindy. I still loved it because of the possibility potential. So to see the team deliver on the potential and deliver on some of the ideas and dreams that we all had playing early on is it's so amazing. So captaincy, great addition. Milestones, a great addition because it adds. We're getting closer to the RPG mechanics. There are the Destiny diehards or the games as a service MMO fans who want straight up RPG. Like I want stats. That I don't think is ever coming to this game. But the milestones, they get us closer to having that permanent progression. So if you do something, you are working towards something. And like you touched on, the completionist, you can't do everything. But that being said, it's going to make ships really distinct because based on how you play and based on what you want to do, you're going to have something that somebody else can't get or would never ever get. And so every single ship is going to have these like unique little elements to it. And I think that's really interesting. I have also bought all 3 ships. I went into this update with 2 million gold, and I'm broke because I bought the sloop, I bought the brig, I bought my galleon. I bought my galleon and named it Shut Up and Fish. And then I bought the Ruby Splash Tails ship set from the Pirate Emporium. Your boy committed to this meme. Your boy threw down some money to commit to the meme there. But it's huge, and now there's weight. And so now I have things because my problem with gold in Sea of Thieves is I didn't care. I locked into my pirate fashion and my pirate ship design early on, and I haven't really changed it. That's just like what I appeal to and what I like. And so I've just had millions of gold for no reason. So it hasn't been a huge incentive for me to spend gold. But now that I can chase these trinkets, and these trinkets are expensive, some of them are 100,000. And I spent all my money on ships. And now when your ship takes damage, you have the option to pay gold to repair it. And when you go to an outpost, instead of scavenging through all the barrels to fill up supplies, you can just go to the shipwright and use gold to buy supplies to streamline the process. So I got things to buy gold on. And that's transformative for me, who for a long time, I didn't care about gold. I just didn't. Because like you said, it's not that hard to earn. But outside of grinding for weeks and weeks to get 4 million gold to buy a figurehead, there wasn't any reason to it. I didn't even want the figureheads. I was just like, I guess I could do it. I'm Pirate Legend, so sure. But I think the biggest thing for me with this update is the fact that for a longtime player, I'm kind of back to having something to chase now, having a reason to play outside of getting to Pirate Legend, because that was the goal early on. But I've been a Pirate Legend for 3 years, so that goal has been long dead, and I've been playing the adventures, I've been playing the Tall Tales, but I haven't
Pirate's Life was so good.
It's so good. But I didn't have that reason to play regularly like I once did. And so now I feel like I'm back to that, and it feels really good. And I'm playing pretty much every single day this week.
Same. I like the way they've adjusted the gold sync to allow you to build towards certain things, trinkets. I mean, some of the stuff is expensive. I'm sitting on 12 million gold, which is which is funny because like to me it's not a lot compared, now that they've got the Dark Adventurer set and some of the other stuff. But what's neat about it is it is easier to earn gold, and I was never sure how much we were earning on a given voyage and a given night because a standard Sea of Thieves session is about 2 hours for me, but that's a lot of time in some people's books and not a lot in others. They added the logbook for your ship that tracks your voyage, and every night at the end of the night, we've been going back and looking in and seeing how much gold we've earned,
Mm-hmm.
which has been neat to see. And it's also been really good at tracking. Like if I'm in an alliance with my buddies, I want to see who's taking the higher profile stuff, which has been cool. But like last night, myself and four other people, we were between a brig and a sloop, and we were just having a good old time doing cool stuff and tracking our progress. And it was just great to be on there. We were at part of a six-person ship, or sorry, a six-person battle last night, where we had three other ships with us. We're all doing naval combat and boarding, and we all know our roles, which is really fun. The one thing I do want them to adjust, Miles, is if you're not the captain of the ship, you don't build progress towards your ship, and that's really hard in a game where if you were part of the crew, you were progressing beforehand. And now it's created a bit of like, oh well, I want to captain my ship this time for this
Exactly. I
reason.
want to get progress on my ship.
Exactly, and that's one thing I think needs to be looked at as they continue to adjust it. Because prior to that, like if I was a part of the crew and Joseph Moran from the trophy room, who's ugly and terrible, if he killed a siren, it counted as me also killing. If I uh, steered the ship in a certain way, he got progress for it too, you know? So I
Yeah,
think we
because
need to
that is a
work.
comp because they have the pirate milestones, which are individual
Mhm.
to your character, and no matter whose ship you're on, you get progress towards those, which is cool.
Exactly.
But like you said, if you have a bunch of dedicated pirates who are trying to build up their ship and build up their ship reputation,
Right.
that's a conflict. Thankfully,
Right.
my group of friends, they just don't care. So they just let me captain the ship every time. So I get the progress, which is nice. But if one
Because
of
I
them
care every
wanted
time.
to, we'd have to like go back and forth. Like you said, like, all right, well, I want to get progress on my ship this time, guys.
Mhm.
So I
And
do. That is interesting. I didn't really think
it,
about that.
it's just something I'd like them to look at. And one could argue, like, sometimes we're just at the mercy of we're trying to get a server together because we want to play with us. That's another thing they need to look into is at the moment we're limited to just 4 people in a game that is just so wonderful to play with more.
Hmm.
And like I've been in part of many people that are putting 2 and 3 galleons on a server, and people can argue the merits of that all day long, and I understand multiple perspectives there, but I genuinely love playing this game with my friends, um, and I want to
What's
make
the
sure I can
pro
progress.
strat for people who are trying to get multiple ships on a server?
Oh gosh, I'm so scared to say this because I don't want the developers upset. All you do is you queue up for your boat. You hit set sail at the same time, for your own boat, and then when you wake up, you go over to the Athena table and you put down your Athena and you see if a boat pops at the same time. So that's how you do it. If a boat pops at the same time, you're on the same server. If you're not, you're not, and
Okay.
you can tempt that at all. I will timidly say that like I think it's great that people know this. I don't know if you call it an exploit, and I hate when we take advantage, but also like I want to play with my friends in this wonderful world. Tools,
Yeah.
not rules. I want a tool to play with my friends, and I love when we have multiple boats and we're going in tackling skelly fleets and taking on Ashen Lords and stuff, and it's cool. So otherwise I couldn't get some people to play if we couldn't play together.
Exactly. And so that is again, whether you consider it an exploit or not, the fact is that I think the game needs a better system for at least having two ships being able to spawn in a server together. Like,
Correct, and I appreciate the dangers of that because if you have PvP lords going in there ruining time, I get it, but I want to play with my friends.
exactly. And again, if you have non PvP edge lords coming in and you have multiple non PvP edge lords on the server, maybe that helps ease in the players who are very turned off by the PvP. You got
Correct.
an ally. You got a brother ship in arms out there willing to back
Mhm.
you up if things go south. So
Yep,
yeah, I
I get
do
it.
think that's because that is a really cool trick for doing it.
Mhm.
Um, but I understand that
Yeah.
it's maybe
I
considered cheating, maybe.
yeah, I get the
I don't know.
discussion points from both perspectives, and I genuinely hope I don't offend any rare devs from it because that's a sensitive thing for them. They get too much vitriol about PvE versus PvP. I understand all those discussions. I have notes ready. You can't really see it with the light, but I have a full, page of notes ready in case you brought that up, not at 2.5 hours in, because I just think it's a really cool topic. But yeah, I don't mean to break the game, but I want to enjoy the game with people that are less skilled or not inclined. And to your point about gold, like I don't really care about the gold. I just want to enjoy the world.
Exactly. Yeah, and I understand. I was originally going to have a longer conversation about PvP
Hmm.
because it is a very controversial element
Hmm.
of this game. Very
Yeah.
people say this game has to have PvE servers. That PvP is toxic, completely ruins the game.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's a longer conversation, so probably won't dive fully
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. I don't have time for
Um,
that one today at this
yeah,
point.
but I do agree. I would love to see a official means for at least a couple
Correct.
ships to spawn
Yes.
in together, so it's not an exploit or whatever the case might be. I
Agreed.
do love the dynamic nature. Dynamic social nature of Sea of Thieves is what makes it special. I don't want anything to fundamentally change, but I do like people having more options so they can play the way that they see fit.
Exactly. Exactly. And I appreciate the discussion points one way or the other. Like I really do. And again, on a different day, and Miles, we could do a whole podcast, and I would
Yeah, I
love to
can.
join if you want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, like a full Sea of Thieves
Does
show.
Sea of Thieves need PVE servers? That's a
That's
podcast in of
Dude,
itself.
I will do that with you in a heartbeat because it's such a great topic that sometimes gets muddled on Twitter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, I'm gonna get to some super chats. We are gonna wrap it up after those super chats. But huge shout out to you for hanging out and huge shout out to everyone tuning in. First up, Nick. I have both Game Pass and PlayStation Premium, and they're both awesome.
Dope.
Nice. You can
Cheers
feel that
to
way, and
Nick.
that's fine. There would probably be people on Twitter lambasting Nick, saying, PS Premium is a ripoff, dude. What are you doing? I say, just let the dude enjoy things, okay? Assassin says, Sony, this is quotes, Call of Duty has no rival, and we have no way to compete. Paul Tassi, Destin Legary, Bungie, Destiny community. Am I a joke to you? Well, yes, the Destiny community is a strange beast. I have some friends in that, and they've tried to pull me in, and I think I really don't have time for it. That game is a lifestyle. That
Yeah.
game's it's not even
Job.
a game. It's just it's a way of life.
Yep.
Assassin with one more super chat says Phil Spencer did visit In Exile and Rare recently. Could they be
Mhm.
at Xbox Gamescom show? Could it be something like XO22? Tom Henderson said you'd like Miles. Oh yeah, so
Rare will be there. They're doing a meet and greet.
yeah, Rare will be there. I don't think they're announcing anything new. As much as Everwild still is one of my most anticipated games. I don't think we'll see it there.
Mhm.
Special Nick from Xbox Era did tease and say that if they end up doing XO22 this year, that there would be a very Miles game, a very Miles Xbox game shown. So again, I don't know what that is. If it's Phantom Dust would be the obvious choice. Do I think it's Phantom Dust? No, but I don't know what else. I guess Legend of Mana on Xbox is something else I constantly complain about. So I
Yeah.
have to imagine it's one of those two things, but who knows?
Yeah.
All right, Luke. Thanks
Yes.
for hanging out, man. Had a great time. We had some great chats. Glad we could dive into some of the mess of the console wars, if you
Yeah.
will. The PlayStation versus Xbox. Xbox clapping back on PlayStation.
Oh yeah.
Always appreciate your nuance, man. So for everyone hanging out, everyone listening live and listening on audio services, let them know where they can find you, dude.
Well, absolutely. I will say thank you as well because I returned to work. This is my summer vacation. I'm a teacher, and I go back to work on Monday, and I got to.
Oh,
Well, it's all right, man. I'm excited. But I got to start my summer being on Unlocked and end it being on Xbox Chaturdays, and that is the coolest thing in the world to me because I'm so grateful. When your message came in, I lit up. My wife chuckled at me because I was just so excited. Um, you guys, anyone can find me, of course, on Twitter at Insipid Ghost. And I welcome your follow if you're interested. And similarly, I'd love it if you guys would check out the Xbox Expansion Pass. I tend to feature industry interviews, of course, as I've talked about before. High profile, small profile. I enjoy that. I have 2 very high profile ones coming up in the next few weeks. I don't want to say names or lock dates because it's not been recorded yet. And you always got to be careful.
Nothing's official till it's
Uh,
official.
That's right. But on tomorrow's episode, I've already recorded it. There's an interview with Kevin Mann, who's a producer for the game RimWorld. Have you heard of
Yes.
Yeah, RimWorld Console Edition. I had the producer for that on the show. It was really cool to hear how this super popular PC game got ported into a console. And so you can hear that there. And those are the stories that I love hearing because I would never have this game had I not pursued another guest. And it was just really cool to learn from that. So Xbox Expansion Pass, all your podcast services, please do take the time to check it out, guys. It would mean the world.
Luke, appreciate you. Appreciate you having those chats. And I appreciate everyone who tunes in and enjoys Xbox Chaturdays. It does mean a lot. Until next time, we will catch you next weekend and have a fantastic week, everybody. Take care.